Good evening, Holliston. Sorry for the slight delay. Welcome to the December 21st, 2023 meeting of the Holliston School Committee. We have a pretty packed schedule, but before I begin, I did just want to say a great thank you to all the teachers, staff, paraprofessionals, administrators for, dealing with the storm on Monday and all the sort of ramifications and things that came with that. It's not easy, I'm sure, for anyone. We recognize that there are some challenges, but really appreciate everyone's work and pitching in to help get that done. So thank you very much for that. And with that, we'll quickly just do the consent agenda. Except take a motion. Does anyone have any changes to the minutes? All right, so all in favor of accepting the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That carries 5-0. We're now to be considerate of everyone's time. We're going to take a couple things out of order, and we'll start with new business, the overnight field trip request, approval for the Global Citizens Program for Italy per policy IJOA. And with that, if I could, if you just,
Ms. Frost is going to.
Ms. Frost is okay. Great. Steal the mic from Dave.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for taking a little bit of time to hear me tonight. I just wanted to share some information about the Global Citizens Program. For those of you who I haven't had a chance to meet yet, my name is Shauna Frost, and I'm an English teacher at the high school. This is my 20th year at the high school, and I'm one of the co-advisors of the Global Citizens Program, along with Caitlin Mills, Doug Clay, and Erica Clay. It was 2 years ago that we sat before the school committee and requested support for the Global Citizens Program, and with your approval, it has really flourished. And so I just wanted to share some good news and updates. So we have 63 students on the path to endorsement in the Global Citizens Program, and the ninth graders, as rising ninth graders who joined this year, outnumbered the ninth graders we had joining last year. So it is a program that's growing, and students are really excited about it and getting a lot out of it. Our ninth graders and 10th graders are completing their Introduction to Global Citizen course and Service Learning course, and the 11th and 12th graders are working really hard on their capstones as well as mentoring the younger grades. So it just really encompasses the tenets of a vision of a graduate and everything in terms of character and leadership, service, activism that is Holliston. So I just wanted to share that good news about the program and what we're seeing in year almost 3 since it was approved. So I did share some information about a unique travel opportunity that we've been working on for our students, and I'm going to let David speak to that.
So as a part of the Global Citizenship Program, we wanted to provide students the opportunity to actually do that global part of it. With COVID behind us and travel available, working with EF to provide students an opportunity that wasn't just travel, but also an opportunity to do some service learning on the trip as well. It's an important part of any of the trips that we'll be looking at, is that students not only travel and go somewhere, but also give back to the community where they'll be going. We shared with school committee information about the trip and are here seeking approval for the trip, and happy to answer any questions that you might have about the trip.
Great. Do we have any questions about the trip?
No, thank you for the information. It's great.
One thing I will say, I figured I'd get the question, but I'll just answer it. So in terms of opportunities for students, it's they're expensive trips, obviously. One of our goals in this is to not only plan far enough ahead where folks can make like monthly payments that are hopefully affordable, but also working with EF, and as we have students go, that we're able to provide scholarships. So like the more students that sign up at full price, we're then able to provide scholarships for students who might need some. And obviously we reach out to families, let them know that that's available, and hopefully they'll come forward if interested in the trip and ask for some of that support, because we'd love to really see as many students as possible go. So.
Great.
And you should have seen in your packets the request form, which Shawnee did a really detailed job on.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
And thank you for talking about the cost and finding ways to equalize that was my one question. So without any other questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve the trip under policy IJOA.
Sure, moved by Amanda.
All right, all in favor? Aye, that carries 5-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good luck and enjoy.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, we're going to take one more thing out of order, and that is under presentations, item C, the admin update on the science health curriculum transition for the 3rd, 4th grade starting in January. Sure.
Can you give that back to me, please? Thank you.
Yep.
We have the esteemed Principal Miller with us.
Good to see everybody. I'm going to give you an update. I think coming from last school committee meeting, there were some questions. How did this come about? And so I'm going to kind of walk you through our process and go from there. I'm looking at my screen. So last year, with our district-wide curriculum change, we had somebody pre-K through 12 looking at health. We had somebody pre-K through 12 looking at our science. And from there, we saw gaps and, some things that we needed to make sure that we were doing at the elementary school. Number one, DESE requires health instruction starting at pre-K. We were starting in grade 5. So we have not been working in the health standards until grade 5. So in what we were talking about, we're looking to move it into the unified arts where the science is currently, so that we would be teaching 3rd grade and 4th grade standards. I talked to Jamie. They're brand new health standards that came out this fall. Jamie over at Placentino, they're going to work with their classroom teachers, with the wellness teachers, to see how that fits. The content is much less in depth than some of the concepts that they're learning in 3rd, 4th, and 5th. So that's where we were looking to implement the health standards. In grades 3 and 4 for science, it talks about having 3 hours of science per week. Right now, we have a 50-minute unified arts block, and with the transitions with that, it's probably 45 minutes tops with a science lesson if you're taking a look at that. And we are looking to move the science into the classroom where it is taught 30 minutes 4 times, 5 times a week. Can you jump over to the other presentation? So starting a couple years ago, so before COVID, we started seeing a decline in our achievement in science. Could you go to the next slide? So before COVID, 2019, we are not making our accountability levels for our science. So each one of the target areas is decreasing. And so if you'll go to the next one, 2022, you'll still see that we aren't making our accountability levels. And these accountability levels are goals that the state puts on Holliston, what gains they think we should make, not what other districts are doing. What should we make? And then go to the next one. And then in this last one, you can see we've declined in all areas of accountability as well, looking at from 2022 to 2023. So this is part of the rationale for us moving forward with putting science back into the elementary classroom in grades 3 and 4. Nope, you can go. So in my thought process in all of this, you know, I look at I started with our grade 5 model. Our grade 5 model, we've got math science, we've got ELA social studies. And when I looked at that, I looked at the achievement levels from grade 4 to 5, and we were making significant gains from 4 to 5. And if you look at the next one, if you look at our growth is over 20 points when I look at from grade 4 to 5. So my thought process is you've got content-specific teachers teaching to a subject, and the kids are getting that. And so when you become content-specific, you're not worried about the ELA and social studies. You're worried about less content, and so you become better at that content area. So that's the thought process in where we were. So in my initial, when I first brought this out, in the next 2 slides you can see as well, I did an ELA. You'll see ELA in grade 5 achievement goes up, and then the next side is our growth, and our growth goes up in grade 5. Less in ELA than math, but still we are making that growth. So looking at we're not getting enough minutes in science, looking at we're trying to improve our accountability level in science, looking at also, we know that we're coming out with a new math curriculum, and so we most likely will have training that's going to go along with that. So the whole thought process in all this is not all teachers would then need to learn the math, learn the science. You'd have ELA, you would have social studies. When you're doing your PD, you would be focused on those different areas, and you wouldn't have to get the training in all 4 areas. And if you're looking to do ELA training, but you also need to do math training, you're fighting between content areas in which area is going to get the PD, because if I need my math training, but I also want to do writing, I'm fighting for who's going to get the time to do that. So the thought process was to have content-specific people so that they could then work on their craft in those areas, and we would see what our accountability would be. So brought that concept to Susan in November of, we can go back to the first. So I brought that to Susan November of 2022. From there, she said she wanted to bring it to HFT. So the end of December, we talked with Jamie Catone and Amanda Rivera, and just brought the concept forward. We sat on it till January, where in January I brought it to grade leaders. Grade leaders, we looked at pros and cons. We then brought it to grade levels. You could imagine a lot of people weren't interested in change, but at the same time looking at the dialogue in how that's going to happen. From there, from pros, cons, whatever, we took a look at, okay, maybe we don't want to do the math science change in grade 3. Maybe we just want to do the social studies science in grade 3. And then let's do the math science in grade 4, just because developmentally the kids coming over from Placentino having a larger change in what they were doing. So that was a proposal that was put forth in, believe it was March of last year. And then from March to May, we did some collective bargaining with the HFT, with the teachers, coming up with, at the end of May, that we were going to be moving forward with this, with training in June, over the summer, in all of this year. And so at that May meeting, it was decided also that we were not going to do the math science in grade 4. We were just going to do the social studies science in grade 4. Also at that meeting, we wanted more time. Teachers wanted more time to implement. So that's why we are starting in January doing this switch versus having started at the beginning of this year. So that's the timeline in what we were looking at. So what was the planning? So for the health, the Ida's been working with our two health science teachers, and the units are up on the board, or up on the screen, I think. Nope, next one. She's used PD days, small group meetings, monthly curriculum meetings, and you can see the resources that the teachers are using and are going to be using starting next month. And if you go to the next slide, I'm looking at mine. There was release time provided in June. There were opportunities to participate over the summer, and then in the fall and coming up till now, we had release time, we had professional development time, and we had curriculum time. We have purchased Mystery Science. James has outlined for the remaining of the year switch times and dates and lessons, so he has put that all together, scope and sequence. I think it was discussed a couple weeks ago that there may have been units that may have been done, but those units have been replaced with James just supplemented with the kits that we have to move forward for the remainder of the year.
Any questions for Dave?
Any questions?
So the last part you're referring to, like, there was just like a mix-up and one of the lessons they thought they were doing in February had already been taught.
So I
And
think there's 4
specials-
units, there's particular units, they're boxed. Everything is boxed
Yep.
and everything is, and so instead of doing one unit, it'll be a different unit, which is gonna be taught next year anyway, so scope and sequence out, it's just one of the units that goes with Mystery Science.
So 4 units starting in January through June?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay. And the kits, what does that include, right?
Everything, even the paper clips and sticky notes, along with whatever is going to be for a particular lesson. The lesson is spelled out, and all the materials are with it. If we needed supplementary, James was able to order that, and he's delivered that to the classrooms.
How does that look scheduling wise? I'm sorry, I'm not sure I followed
So
that.
we're looking at either an 8-day sequence or a 9-day sequence.
Okay.
There was conversation, should we do this every week? Teachers asked, could we do kind of a whole unit, or have a longer period and then switch? We didn't see why not, so he put together an 8-day or a 9-day schedule, and it just rotates for the rest of the year.
Yeah, so they'll have the same class for the 8 or 9 days.
Yep.
And then on the alternate, they'll take the other class because it's going to be 2 teacher teams swapping social science.
This might sound like a small issue, but like, is there going to be any time built in for just like the teams of teachers to meet? Just quickly, I'm talking about like a half an hour to just discuss like the new students with whom the teachers
So
will work
the
as far as like
Tuesday,
IEPs,
Wednesday-
accommodations, like that
Tuesday,
type of
Wednesday,
thing?
Thursday, prior to, or when we come back, we're not switching yet. And so those are our days. Our curriculum meeting this past week, we gave time for that as well. Shannon is in the process of switching over in Power School, giving teachers access to the other classroom so that they can see all IEPs or anybody with health plans, similar to what we do for the Bright Arts teachers. And that should be ready, I'm hoping by the end of the day tomorrow, if it's not already done.
Were there any unique challenges with the French immersion?
Oh, yeah. There always is.
Always.
There always is. There's not enough time in the day for any of this, for whatever we're doing. I know there was conversation, we're going to lose time in math, we're going to lose time in ELA, but it's shifting. And so time is a factor at the elementary schools. There is no doubt about that. And in the French immersion, it may be a less of a switch because that is, that's everything in the French program. Originally, when we started the process, we talked about having it in the French side, but it didn't make sense. There weren't any materials in French. There'd be all this translation. And actually, the English side said that doesn't make sense. And so, yes, there's going to be time constraints across the board. But that's not going to change whether we do that in January or whether, this is implemented, at a different time. But
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Gunn. Elf on the shelf.
Elf on the shelf.
One second. Bring back up the agenda. Okay, we'll now get started with our agenda. So we will move on to the report from our student representatives.
Okay, so we had our band concert on Tuesday, which was very successful. It was Mr. Grenna's last concert, and then the chorus concert was the Tuesday before that, and that was Ms. Holmgren's last concert. So we're very sad to lose both those music teachers.
Winter activities such as sports and theater are continuing, or happening. The Science Olympiad team is currently 7th out of 20 plus Metro West teams.
And yesterday was the National Honor Society gift wrapping fundraiser that raised $360 for the Holiday Dreams Foundation in Holliston. And from now until the end of the year, the Beautiful Mind campaign, which was created by HHS alum Megan Burke, is partnering with Megan Burke's company, Wear Cuerdos, which is a local nonprofit that creates sensory clothing for individuals who need some sort of stimulation or something to help them calm down. So it's embroidered pieces of clothing, and she sells them for only the price that she has bought them for. So essentially they are free because she does a lot of thrifted clothing, and so we have boxes around the school to collect used clothing items for that.
And we would just like to kind of talk about the impact that the storm had on the HHS building on Monday. So 2 trees fell on the school, and there was flooding throughout the building, and this had a major impact on students since all music classes were moved to the library. Band was canceled the day before the concert, and overall it was just very disturbance to learning because half the building was closed off. So that's all. Thank you.
And we'll provide an update on the wall outside the auditorium later when we go through budget, but that's definitely a concern that we've been working hard to try to address.
And just so you know, the wall outside, the auditorium wall, is the one that impacts that band hallway. So that's we do have an update on that later.
Yeah. Anything else? Okay, great. Thank you very much. That's great. School committee individual comment. Sarah? Amanda?
Right.
No.
Yeah, might as well just say move. All right, and now public comment. And I know we have one person who asked. That's her, Aaron, if you'd like to come up, sit at the microphone.
I'm sorry.
Sit at the microphone or.
Good evening. My name is Erin Acker, and I am a third grade teacher at Miller Elementary School. This is my 25th year teaching in the district. I am here once again on behalf of 22 out of 26 third and fourth grade teachers to advocate for the third and fourth grade students in our school. As of right now, when we return to school after winter break, the third and fourth grader schedules will be changing due to our administrators' plan to restructure science. Their proposal is to transition science from specials to the general education classroom so it can be taught daily. Then, the current science teachers will transition to providing instruction in health. The rationale for this change is to increase minutes in science and incorporate health into the curriculum. We are deeply concerned about the decrease in ELA and math instruction that will result from this restructuring. Due to this restructuring, we will be losing an average of 75 to 90 minutes of ELA instruction per week and 18 minutes of math instruction per week compared to last year. We can provide documentation proving this. If we are going to make a change that impacts our students to this extent, we owe it to them to consider the implications of this decision before jumping into it. To begin with, the assertion that third and fourth grade students are only receiving 50 minutes of science instruction is misleading. These children also receive 50 minutes of instruction biweekly in engineering, which incorporates a large portion of the science standards. That averages to an additional 25 minutes per week, bringing student instruction in science to 75 minutes per week. Additionally, the science teachers confirmed last year that they are able to address all of the science standards put forth by DESE in the time allotted. Furthermore, no evidence has been provided that our Holliston High School graduates are lacking in science education. We then turned our attention to how close other towns come to meeting DESE's recommended number of minutes for science instruction. Based upon some research we have done, we have learned that high-achieving towns around us also fall short of DESE's recommended number of minutes, as they instead prioritize ELA and math. In preparation for this meeting, we reached out to curriculum specialists, administrators, and teachers in several towns. We heard back from Franklin, Hopkinton, Wayland, and Westwood, and learned the following information. One of those 4 towns provides 75 minutes of science instruction per week, which matches the amount of science instruction we are providing. The other 3 said that they strive to provide 90 minutes per week, but admit that they frequently fall short. And 2 of those 3 towns only provide science and social studies themes through their reading instruction. All of these towns provide more ELA instruction than we do. We are happy to provide the data we received and from whom we received it. Finally, in the spring of last year, third and fourth grade teachers worked together to create a proposal that we felt met the need for an increase in science instruction while minimizing the impact that this increase would have on other content areas. We proposed that third and fourth grade teachers provide instruction in health rather than science. Our reasoning was that we could meet the requirements of health instruction in 40 minutes per week, as opposed to the 75 to 100 minutes of science instruction that is outlined in the current restructuring plan. This would enable us to provide 35 to 60 more minutes of ELA instruction weekly. Additionally, health falls under the umbrella of science. Therefore, if we follow through with this plan, students in Holliston will receive a total of 115 minutes of science instruction every week. We understand understand the need to increase science instruction. As teachers, however, we know that the biggest instructional needs, particularly in 3rd and 4th grade, are in ELA and math. With that in mind, we need to consider which of the following two options best supports student learning, in ELA and math, while addressing the need to increase science instruction. If the 3rd and 4th grade if 3rd and 4th grade general education classrooms adopt the health curriculum, students will receive an average of 115 minutes of science instruction, which exceeds those minutes provided by the other high-achieving towns. Additionally, during our nonfiction literacy units, we read several books with science themes, increasing children's knowledge of and exposure to information in various areas of science. This also meets DESE's recommendation for science. With this option, the teachers believe that they can meet the health standards within the classroom setting while minimizing the impact on ELA and math. It should also be noted that social emotional learning is part of the health curriculum, and we are already incorporating that into our day. If we follow the plan to move science into the general education classrooms, students will receive an average of 146 minutes of science instruction per week. With this option, however, we will be providing an average of 75 to 90 fewer minutes of ELA instruction per week and an average of 18 fewer minutes of math instruction per week than we have for the past 2 decades. For this reason, we believe that our counter-proposal to implement health in the general education classroom provides the best opportunity for students to receive an increase in science instruction with the least impact in the other content areas. In our professional opinions, based upon a collective 351 years of teaching, this is what's best for children. Therefore, we are asking you, the school committee, and the Holliston community, to use your influence to persuade our administration to provide us professional development opportunities for the rest of this school year in health. That way, we can begin meeting the need to increase science instruction by providing instruction in health during the 2024-2025 school year, without as significant an impact on ELA and math instruction. We need to work together to do what's best for children. That's the end of my statement, but there are a couple of other things that I would like to add on that I hadn't prepared. One, in terms of the French immersion program, there is not a science and social studies switch. In the English half of French immersion, science will take the place of some of the reading and writing and math time. Secondly, in terms of planning, yes, there were some planning opportunities given to us, but since we learned as 3rd grade teachers that the unit that we had been working on since last spring had already been taught, we have not been given any time to review the new unit that we have to present. And there was, I'm sorry, I'm on a text chain right now where 3rd and 4th grade teachers are sharing their thoughts because they're all very, very concerned about this situation. The other issue that came up was the kits. The kits that were ordered for us, they were very expensive. And I would love to have every one of you come look at them because they are not worth the money that was spent on them. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Are there any questions? I mean, this was on our agenda, so if there are, I mean, I don't think it's,
This is on our agenda?
well, the science curriculum was on our agenda, so I don't think it's against OML or anything to ask if you have some follow-up questions. The one thing I meant to mention, and I'm sure you guys are planning on doing this, but is, with this going forward, how can we make sure that we're reviewing any impact that it has? One of the things that struck me is that Mr. Keim put up there, some great statistics on showing how our ELA had been improving, 4th to 5th, and our math scores have been improving as well. Just making sure that, if we are losing minutes in those subjects, that we're not seeing a slip in there, that we're just continuing to sort of monitoring and just always looking at things to make sure that we're doing what's best. I mean, I certainly don't know what the right answer here is. I think that Aaron makes some compelling points, but Mr. Keim had a good presentation too. So it's difficult, but I just think that while tough, we need to just make sure that we're continuing to look at the data and look at how things are.
Yeah, I mean, we should always be reassessing, and when you're developing curriculum, when you're implementing curriculum, you should always be reassessing. And just like we do with our interventions, progress monitoring every 10 weeks or even shorter durations to make changes. This is really an ongoing conversation that during our curriculum meetings with the administration at the building level, with our curriculum coordinators, that we should continue to have these conversations. What's working, what's not, what should we revisit? I don't think anything should be set in stone. We always say when we build curriculum, when we start to implement it, it's never done. It's always a work in progress, and the best people to share that information about what's going well and what's not are the teachers, and those ongoing conversations will continue to happen.
If you don't mind, thank you, Susan. I appreciate you saying that we are the best people to give you input on how this is going to go, because we're telling you now, this is not what's in the best interest of children. And everyone over here is in this room for that reason, and everyone at home is watching and texting me right now for that same reason. If we were to take on the health curriculum, we would be helping you, we would be helping children, we would be increasing science, and we would still be able to provide them adequate reading, writing, and math.
I just want to make sure to clear up something, though, Erin.
Sure.
The health curriculum standards are totally different than the science curriculum standards. They are not one and the same.
Right, but they're under that umbrella.
They're not. So you have a separate standard. I just sent out a newsletter to everybody, right? And in 2023, they were updated. They were not updated since 1999.
Yes, we're aware.
And so, right, and they're called the Health and Physical Education Curriculum Frameworks. There's a separate science and technology engineering framework. So teaching health does not impact, you're not teaching the science standards, you're teaching the health standards.
That's fair. And I'm sorry I made that mistake.
Yeah,
It's okay.
no, it's fine. I just want to make sure it was cleared up.
But I also think, too, and we've talked about this before, Erin, I really think, and I can speak just from having been a teacher for 15 years and having taught 10 years of science in grades 3 and 4, I feel confident in our teachers. I know that change is scary, and we want to hear what's going, and what's working and what's not. Always willing to revisit. I think this is where we are right now, ready to move forward, knowing there's going to be some growing pains with it. But I also want to say to parents in the community, because I know this because I taught it, I incorporated an immense amount of nonfiction reading, ELA writing. We wrote up experiments, hypotheses, and reflections. So my students, when I taught in this manner, got more ELA built into their science, and I was also able to build math in there as well when we did experiments and measurements. So I know that when you're new to it, it may not be as easy to embed and do these interdisciplinary lessons, but I am confident in the teachers we have, because they're all excellent, that you will get there. And let's take this year to kind of tread lightly into it, walk to it together. And as you get more comfortable with the content, I feel very confident that our students will be getting that ELA and math time embedded in science and social studies, because you do that with social studies already.
Right. And I just want to add one more thing. We're not afraid. We're not afraid of change. We're not nervous about that. We're not resistant. We're not complacent. We work extraordinarily hard. and what we believe is best for children should be given more weight than it's being given. We work extraordinarily hard. These people are giving up time during their holiday season to be here to make sure that you understand the importance of this issue on our children. And I cannot stress enough how challenging we find it that we are not being heard. We are willing to make changes. We are willing to take on the health curriculum. We understand that that is an area in which we are lacking as a system, and we're happy to do that. And if we do that, we can provide children with more reading, writing, and math, and that is what they need. We are with them every day, and we know where their needs are. And I cannot stress enough how important it is that our concerns not only be taken seriously, but are followed, are heard. We could try it our way too. That's just another option. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
So I think it's just bears saying that the school committee did not have a role in the implementation of this, so I don't think that there's a role for us tonight or any sort of ability for us to make a change tonight. But I do think, we are listening. Let's continue the conversation with everybody as this goes forward and see how it goes. I hear you, and I really do hear you. I think we all do. I think the administration does. Let's just keep on, reassessing, and if issues come up, I think everyone's committed to continuing to reassess. So, thank you. All right, on to the budget presentation, Mr. Boudet.
Are we doing the budget first or the data?
I'm sorry.
Whichever you prefer.
No, let's do the data assessment while we're still earlier in the evening.
Okay, so I know this has come up during the strategic planning process when we did surveyed the community and had about over 1,000 responses. One of the things we had heard is that parents and community members felt that our rigor and curriculum needs to improve. There was a concern brought forward in some of the survey results about rankings having slipped in recent years, pre-COVID. And what are we doing about it? What should we do about it? So recently as well, at one of our school committee meetings, I know that the school committee also brought this up as, can we talk more about the data and what our data looks like in Holliston comparative to some of our neighboring districts. So this is the first time I've actually done a specific presentation related to the rankings. I have done plenty of presentations in my past life related to MCAS, and we're going to talk about that a little bit. But overall rankings was something new that we've dived into, so we're going to present some different types of rankings and what does it all mean. We're not going to be able to answer all questions tonight because this is the first dive we've had into this. I want to thank Jody Renee Miller, our data specialist at the district level, and Dan McLeod for diving into this as a whole. We don't have a data dashboard, so they had to create a lot of these things for you. So if we don't have an answer for you tonight, we're happy to come back at a later date and kind of revisit this topic, but tonight we'll do our best to kind of show you where we are and what it might all mean to us. So if you look at some of the things we're going to talk about, we didn't have comparison districts. I looked at when you presented MCAS in previous years prior to 2017. In those MCAS presentations that I have from previous administration, there were no real comparisons. It was really Holliston to Holliston. So we didn't really know which comps you'd want. So we had to come up with a system for that. So we'll talk about how we developed that system, and happy to even think outside the box on that as well. The data that we're going to talk is coming from the niche rankings, U.S. News and World Report, Boston Magazine, School Digger. We'll show how MCAS relates to some of that data, because some of that comes from MCAS, and then any recommendations that we have as a result. So we'll try to go through this quickly, and if there's a question that's pertinent at the time, feel free to ask it, but we'll try to hold questions at the end just so we don't take up too much of your time. All right, so in order to select districts, we looked at what are the ones in closest proximity in the Metro West area, because I think we have, 40 districts in Metro West, something like that. The ones that are immediately surrounding in one proximity, and then the second level of that. And those would be Ashland, Dover, Sherburne, Franklin, Hopkinton, Medway, Milford, Millis, and Natick. Now, they're not all comparable in the same demographics. So we could have picked just similar demographics, but if you start doing that, you're no longer in Metro West. So we used a different data source, sticking with the ones that are closest to proximity. And the next slide tells you, so niche is the first ranking that we looked at, and they take things like academic grades, they look at college enrollment data, survey respondents, teacher grades, cultural and diversity grade, parent-student surveys on overall experience, resources and facilities, clubs and activities, and sports. It's a very complex process, and I don't think we fully understand it, and that's why we need. And it's also can be a little bit skewed depending on if you have a lot of people going onto your niche link and weighing in and making, just commenting, that can bring up your rankings. So if people aren't going in and looking at it and getting a lot of hits on it, it all impacts that. So the rankings are relevant, but also can be skewed. There is some data from the U.S. Department of Education that is incorporated in niche as well.
And just to bring up, if you click on the links there, it does give you more details about each area.
Yeah, the link should be live on the slide to get you the main page.
Cool.
All right, so on the next slide, you'll see here, this is coming from niche. This is Holliston to Holliston. So we went back as far as we could go. We reached out to the niche company and said, how far back can we get our numbers? They got us back to 2016, 17, well before COVID. So at that point, we were, so the higher the number, the lower the ranking. So the lower number is better here. That's why we flipped these charts. We felt that to show you that the higher number is lower, actually. So if you look at it, we went from 66 in 2016-17 down to our lowest of 84. Then we climbed a little bit up in 18-19 to 66, 19-20, pre-COVID, 52, and then 60, 65, and we're back up to 51 again. So prior to 2016, we had some higher rankings, and we did have a shift in 2017-18. You'll see that there was a shift in the district of moving away, doing the innovation and the project-based learning. And we talk about that a little further on as well. And that we did see some dips there around that time. We were not looking at MCAS in the same way, and MCAS is not the be-all and end-all. It is one data source, but I think you'll see our recommendations later about what we think we should be looking at for data that's relevant to, if we would like to improve our rankings, it's all relevant. The next one, again, we put the bars on the bottom end of the scale so that you can see that the lower the number, the higher the ranking, actually. So in our comps there, Milford, Ashland, Hopkinton, Franklin, Millis, Medway, Natick, Holliston, and Dover, Sherburne. You can see the asterisk one, the starred one, is our red Holliston at 48. So we're not up where Hopkinton is at 8 on the niche rankings, and we're not up where Dover, Sherburne, but we're not on the low end as well.
Can I ask just a quick question? Because
Sure.
Prior slide, 2022, 2023, we were 51, and this we're 48.
Thank you. That's a great question. So the 51 is for the Holliston Public School District. The 48 is specific to high school. They give us different data, so I'm glad you
Great,
saw that.
thank you.
Because I almost forgot.
No, it's great. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm going to pass over to Dan for the next slide.
Yes, good evening, happy holidays, everyone. I'm going to pick up the next couple slides. So Niche has a tool where you can actually go and compare up to 4 high schools, any choosing you want. we decided to pop up these three neighbors for us. Slide's a little blurry, but you can see all of the factors that go into the niche rankings. It's important to note that this year niche took out SAT and ACT, so even though you see those listed here under these high schools, it's a non-factor in the niche rankings. However, it will appear in other rankings later on. All right, swinging to U.S. News, another tool we looked at. This is these are their measuring sticks, so to speak. What's important to note is the highest category is 30%, and it's focused on basically AP, which is what we have at Holliston High School, not the IB program. So the highest weight for this ranking, U.S. News, is AP, and we're going to dive into some of that data in a moment. And then continuing on the next 10%, the next line is more AP. So 40% is tied to the AP for the U.S. News rankings. And then the next 40%, the next two 20s are state assessments, no surprise there, MCAS basically, grade 10 MCAS. And then down at the bottom we have graduation rate, and underserved students are also factored in the rankings for U.S. News.
Can I ask a question about, I just was looking at the graduation rate rank. We have a transition program in Holliston. Do you think that that is impacting what they consider graduation rates? Because those students stay 12 plus, they stay from 18 to 22. And I wonder whether when we say they don't graduate, it's because we have another program to them to move to. And I don't know.
We're required by law, though, to have that. Every public school is required to have that program, that a student stays with you until they turn 22 years old. So every school district would have that same
thing. So it's right. You don't think that it's impacting us at all?
If it is, it's impacting everybody, so I don't know,
Okay.
right?
Yep.
Right.
It does not include those students.
It's diploma driven too.
Diploma-driven four-year graduation.
Okay,
That's all right. Yeah.
The state corrects for us if in future years, like if a kid takes a fifth year or whatever, the state will correct back, but it's a 4-year.
For those at home, that's Mr. List, the principal of Holliston High School, saying that it's a 4-year graduation rate, just helping to clarify the
Diploma versus competency.
Track,
Yeah.
diploma, and
Thank you, sorry.
No? Any questions are welcome. Keep in mind, this is, U.S. News is only focused on high school, not the district, so we're going to be pivoting back and forth between those two, so just, I'll try to clarify that for folks. I'm going backwards. I want to go the other way. All right, so here again is Holliston High School according to U.S. News this past year. We ranked 76. You can see our neighbors and how they fared. Dover, interesting, is the top of the neighbors, not necessarily, Hopkinton's ranked number 1 district-wide, but the high school is 13th. So what goes into that 76 ranking? Here's the scorecard from Niche. I'm sorry, U.S. News. Scorecard from U.S. News is, there's the 76 over there on the left. And then you can see how we fare nationally and Boston area. But if you take a look at this scorecard, we have an 88.54, which doesn't mean a lot looking here, but that's how U.S. News stacks up these districts when they rank them. And you can see the major factors there. Again, AP is the top 2, and you saw in the categories, those are heavily weighted. So you can see where there's definitely areas we can grow.
Can I just, and I know that Principal List actually pointed this out to me, having come from Medway. Many districts, if they are offering AP classes, also require students to take AP.
Yeah.
So that is impactful. So if it's voluntary for students to take AP, then less will take the test.
Yeah.
So if it goes by how many are enrolled and then how many take the test and then how they pass the test. So the less taking obviously impacts and brings the numbers down.
Do districts that require students to take the test?
If they take the AP class.
No. If they require it,
Yeah.
do they also then have funds to provide for students who can't afford it? I don't know.
It's $100.
It has to do with the reason they require is, sorry.
So we didn't know you were going to be here, but it's helpful that you are.
Fine.
Thank you.
Fine. So in most districts that have weighted GPAs, that's how you then create, like, that's what gets you the weighted GPA by taking the AP exam.
Yeah.
When, like, in Medway where I was before, if you did not take the AP exam, you got honors weight. Because that's considered, that's like the final exam for the class.
Yeah.
So that's how most schools do that. When Holliston, right, when Holliston, when I was talking to a teacher, I was talking to James today, actually, not a teacher, James Lavasser today, thank you. And he was saying, like, when he taught AP Bio, he would say to the kids, if you're planning to go to college and study science, don't bother taking the exam because they're going to make you take bio anyway.
Yeah.
So there wasn't, so that was, the numbers are skewed there when it comes to APs and the test takers, because that's how they measure it.
Right.
Yeah, it doesn't mean our kids aren't getting the education. It's
No.
just they're not.
But not only that, they're not necessarily getting the credit. Like that, we're one
Correct.
of the highlights of going doing AP is you're supposed to get credit
And they
for
may
college, and then
take
a
it
lot of
all over
colleges
again.
are saying, "Yeah, I'm not going to take that. You have to take this anyway."
Correct.
So the
So-
incentive has been diminished.
Correct, yeah. So.
That's not true for all colleges, though, just so everybody knows. So
Depends
my
on the
children were able to test, I mean, like, not have to take a lot of classes, and then got to take electives they wanted to take at their colleges.
A lot of
They
it
did
depends
take
on
the
the major.
Yes,
It's
they,
changed
Because it took the
dramatically,
test.
yeah, so they took the test. So it depends on the college. I mean, every college.
College has a major.
And I'm looking at, it says under the scorecard, took at least one AP exam, but then passed at least one AP exam. Isn't it also possible that if we force kids to take the 4 AP exams for the 4 AP classes, that the pass rate could go down? Are we aware of any schools where, you know, if you sign up for 4, you have to at least take 1 or 2. That way you're taking the tests in the areas that you know you're going to be dedicated to, that you feel strong in, that you think it's feasible you can pass.
I think there's all kinds of things we could consider.
Right.
And we're not even suggesting we should do something differently. We're just we're showing you what goes into the rankings. One thing I will say, though, is our AP classes are 3 terms out of 4, which is actually a year and a half instruction. So I'd like to think if our kids are getting a year and a half of instruction versus the year that the typical AP student gets in another district, that they should be able to do better.
But talking about, this isn't the pass rate.
But they're getting more
This
instruction.
is the percent that pass one of the exams. So if you take, more people take the exam, the percent that pass one of them will increase.
It actually, so it will also, because if you know, students are being told, like, if you're going to study science, don't go take the bio exam, you know, it tends to go up when they take those exams, and when they know they have to take the exam. It's a different amount of, it's different what goes on in the classroom when you're saying, you know, you're working and everybody's going to take the exams versus, like, if you want to take the exam. Right.
But those exams are expensive, so my only thing is if we start to encourage people and really sort of drive people to doing that, because if we say that that's sort of important, it helps.
There is money available for students.
Okay.
Yeah, there is money through the AP and through College Board.
Great.
Have we looked at the difference in pass rate, because we are on a block schedule and we do have some AP classes that are 2 terms, right? So when you have stopped taking your AP class in the 3rd week of January and you're taking your AP exam in May versus the kids that get to take that same 2-term class from January till the end of the year, is there a difference in passage rate? Is
So
that
I don't
something
think
we
we've
can
dived into that data. That's something
Okay.
we have not really looked at longitudinal data. That's something we should be collecting. But again, these are all things that when we talk about scheduling at a later date, it is impactful because there's a leg there. I mean, the same thing happens for our students that are taking, they could be taking math in the fall. I'll go to foreign languages because I think that's very clear. When you're speaking French in the fall and you might not speak it outside of school, and then you have the second session, no French being spoken outside of school, and then another fall, you don't get French again. So it could be a full year leg. So I think that impacts a lot of things, but yes, here too, for the 2-term ones.
And I don't want to put our students on the spot, but I also want to make sure the invitation's out there if you have comments or questions on this, because I'm sure as seniors in high school, you've had that experience of having a class end in January and not taking the test until later. So if you...
Yeah, I can say I took 2-term APs last year, and I do think I did worse on one of the exams because I did not take, because it ended in January, so I took English for the first 2 semesters, and I did not do great on that exam, I think.
So some of that can be
Because
impacting.
Right.
I had not been
learning
practicing for
loss.
all.
Yeah.
Sure.
So, do you want to go to the next slide then?
Sure. Just to clarify, this ranking system looks at a cast in a wider net for AP across the school is how you raise your rankings. Casting the net and having people try to take the AP exam. All right, this was a telling comparison. We pulled up Hopkinton High, which is ranked 13th in U.S. News, and then Holliston 76. And if you look at the numbers side by side, you can see the difference. We're actually better in math as far as grade 10 proficiency compared to Hopkinton.
Why isn't science proficiency in?
Yeah, it's a great
We
question.
don't know the
We
answer.
don't know. We're all trying to figure that one out.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Have we also looked at the difference between what AP classes are available in Hopkinton versus Holliston and at what levels? Because one of the things I took note of is I believe Hopkinton High School even offers AP Bio as a freshman, right? Like there is APs offered as early as your freshman year. So that makes me think that the offerings, that the more is available as well.
That's a possibility.
So, I mean, I've looked at those, there aren't more offered there.
Just earlier.
The same content is offered, just different grade levels.
Yeah.
Okay. And then here, I feel like, and I'll lean on our students and Mr. List for this, but you could take maybe up to 3 your sophomore year, but I'm not sure there's many more available. Maybe 4, but no, is it less?
2 is like a lot.
For a sophomore. So that's a limitation
Usually you take
too.
1.
Right, so it's not just how many are offered, so maybe 12 to 15 are offered in each school, but it's when they're offered, because then you have limitations on how many you can take junior and senior year, is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. From my perspective, like I have friends in some of these districts, I'd say our block system, to some extent, sort of hinders, like at least for me, I was really interested in taking multiple APs my sophomore year. And it was just really, really challenging to fit those in and also do a foreign language. And I know some friends who actually sacrifice their foreign languages for APs. So
A lot to think about.
But just a quick, so this is percent of students, all students who took one AP exam, right? So in theory, in Holliston, because there are no AP exams offered to freshmen, our maximum for that is 75%, give or take a couple percent.
Theoretically.
Right? So, but Hopkins is at 76%. So, and not every student's taking it at the higher.
It ends up being for these, I actually can't tell you what U.S. News uses for the grade level, but I would have a hard time imagining that they're counting freshmen. I mean,
Well, that's what I'm wondering, if that's why science is missing. Maybe Hopkinton took science in the 9th grade version, right? And didn't, so that could be, but I can't.
It's a good question.
Yeah, it's
They didn't
very
dig- they
rare
didn't dig into
for
grade levels.
I know that.
they don't tell you.
Take an AP.
They don't actually, when you look at I've looked at their algorithms, it doesn't tell you anything about their grades. I actually don't know what.
So anyhow, something we can look into further.
And just to be clear, when we're using the term passed at least one AP exam, is that a 3? Okay, thanks.
It's worthy to note, Hopkinton does have 100% graduation. I've seen it at 99 too, but again, that's one of those factors in U.S. News.
So I will say, in some of the data we looked at, although passing is considered 3, some of the rankings only look at the 4s and 5s. So again, that's something we have to dig into.
And there are some colleges that only will accept a 4 or 5.
So that also could be why the rankings are different.
Standard.
So here's our Holliston High data from last year as far as AP enrollment, test takers, multiple test takers. Note the 75%. Again, that's what this U.S. News looks at. That's 75% as far as the rank. It's heavily weighted in that rank compared to other districts.
All right, so the next one we're going to talk about is Boston Magazine, which is specific to high school. There are 13 factors that go into it. Again, I'm certainly not an expert at this data, and we're still learning. But definitely there's weight given to the academics and things like SATs, completion rates, number of students heading to college. Those are live links that you can go into if you want more information on that and you want to be a statistician geek on this. There's more information to look into. So, oops.
Sorry.
Was there one other thing I wanted to touch on, I think? Oh, and the other thing was the longitudinal data. That is important it factors into these rankings, and that's something that I know for sure we're not able to dive deeply into specific to Holliston. I don't have access to that. We made a shift not looking as deeply into data in pre-COVID years, around that 17, 18 year. And because of that, we really don't have that long-term data as a source to look at, and I really want to work with Principal List in particular to see how we should be collecting that along the way so that we're not always trying to second guess and try to figure that out, be able to look back and see where we are and where we're going and create timelines for that. So this again is a slide on SATs for Holliston High, and you can just see where our students fare there. I don't really have anything specific to say about it, but these are the scores that did go into the Boston Magazine data. Do you have anything to add on that one? No.
No, just if the school committee wanted to spend any time on this, ask questions.
Do we have this compared to certain comparable districts?
Yes, next up.
No, we have Boston Magazine.
No, the test
SAT.
score. The test score.
I think there's an SAT comparison chart.
Is there?
Is there?
Okay. I'm not familiar with that, but we can certainly bring that the next time if we need to.
I'll find it. We've seen it before.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure we have it. We didn't get it.
Data at school committee before.
I'm sorry, does this have the total number of kids that took it, that graduated? Because we obviously have a lot of kiddos that are not taking it with the test optional.
And just to recognize that for SATs, is there's
Yeah.
less and less students now who are taking the exams, or they will take it once, see that they don't like their scores, and then not submit it or take it.
And
So-
colleges are moving away from this, so I
Correct.
think you'll see that shift in the rankings as well, but right now they do reflect that.
Math.
So when we're looking at this, I'm so sorry, under the, on the left where it says total score, we add those numbers up, we get to how many actually took it that graduated in 23 out of a class of 230?
The 167,
Oh,
is that what you're looking at?
is that the total number there?
No, I think that's standard deviation.
No, just-
Right, that's standard deviation. No,
She's
but
saying the
where do we get
23, the
total number?
64, 57, and 15, if you total that, that should
It's
be the number.
159 out of a class of 230, so
Right.
that's
Gotcha.
significant decrease.
And it keeps going down.
Okay.
Yeah, but that would be it.
Remember, Niche does not look at SAT, but Boston Magazine does, so it's, again, it feels like Niche is kind of more with the times as far as the trends for SAT.
And so the next slide is also still Boston Magazine. Just here's a lot. We were able to get multiple years from back to 2012. So you'll see where we were. The black dots is our line there. It shows you, again, lower the number, higher the ranking. So there we are. I mean, it is very clear that there was a downward trend that started occurring, and 21, 22, we had the dip there, and then we're back up to where we were pre-COVID as well.
And just because you mentioned it to me, we don't have the history for U.S. News because they wouldn't provide it without substantial cost, right?
No, we tried. They wanted $5,000
Yep.
just to get our own data, and I said, I don't even want to dig into the data. I just want those numbers.
So just for anyone at home watching, it's not,
Well, I
we're
would
trying
have done that
to
before you
not
did,
provide
but-
that information, but we think the money.
But this
can
is
be better
something,
spent elsewhere.
now, if this is something you do want to dig into from year to year, we can start collecting it and saving it and having that longitude data.
Lesson learned there.
Ian, that's
Apologies.
you next.
Yes, clicked out instead of next
Oh,
slide.
System.
Okay. There we go. All right, so this is still Boston Magazine, still Holliston High School. Again, you saw we were number 40 according to Boston Magazine last year, but this has our neighbors. It's a very busy slide. So I just wanted to kind of draw your attention to at least 2023. The number 40 ranking puts us above Franklin, Medway, Natick, Hopkinton, and Milford as far as our high school. 2023. That 40 ranking I was speaking to. Again, it's Boston Magazine. All right. All right, the last, is it me still?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, because I'm not familiar with this, so this is
All
all
right,
you.
School Digger. So the last one we wanted to pull up was School Digger. Again, another method to rank our school system. Similar to the other ones, not as much detail as the other ones, but seems to be focused on MCAS primarily. So where are we in School Digger? We are 54 out of 356 Massachusetts districts. This one I did want to click outside of the presentation because it is interesting. I'm going to follow this line graph so you can see some patterns as far as our performance. There's a lot of adware in this site, so be patient, please, as the adware loads until we get what we want here. There it is. Okay. So this is 2015. We were at 84.5% better than other districts in Massachusetts. 2016, 80. 2017, 85.5, and then 2018 down to 72%. And if you swing up to 2023, we're actually better. 84.8 is actually better than 2015, according to School Digger, as far as our performance.
All right, I think it's, oh, this is me again, sorry. So we just wanted to point out, when we're looking at our student growth, MCAS does give us our student growth percentiles every year. We certainly can use that, those 3-year trends to see where our students are related to the curriculum frameworks. But we should also be looking at our locally developed assessments, benchmark assessments, our anecdotal ongoing observations, and informal assessments. We should not be just looking at one data source, and that's what these rankings, what does it really tell us? It tells us that we're looking at all different types of data for these rankings, and what does it all mean in the end? Depends on what you want to do with it and where you want to go as a community. Again, this visual is here just to kind of show the timeline for MCAS. If you look in 2019, full testing for grades 3 to 8, and then we had the gap year when COVID hit and schools shut down, so they did not administer MCAS. Then they went back to half testing, grades 3 to 8, full testing in 21 for high school. And then we're back on normal trajectories of 22 and 23, down MCAS data, and the growth percentiles are able to be measured again. All right, so you're going to see 2 different versions here, and this is because we're going to show you the data from a longer term as well. So prior to 2017, we were using the ratings of advanced, proficient, needs improvement, and failing. And I'm not going to go through what that means, but that was the legacy MCAS levels. And then if you go to the next slide, from 2017 on in grade 3 to 8, and then it switched in 2019 in grade 10, we now go by exceeding expectations, meeting, partially meeting, and not meeting. And the rigor of the test changed as well. So that's why you'll see different colors up here when Joni explains some of the data, because when we're looking at it, you can't really compare. We're not comparing apples to apples, apples to oranges. So it looks like we've declined, but it's really the measures have changed as well. So everybody saw that shift, and she'll go over that a little bit.
How did the rigor change? Will we cover that?
Yes, well, they realigned all the curriculum frameworks and then the test to that and added more application and problem solving. We're not going to get too deep into that today, but again, that's something we can talk about later.
Okay, so now we're going to look at MCAS, our ELA historical data, and as Dr. Kuska said, we have different colors here. On the left, it's the previous years, and so that is the legacy MCAS test. In 2017, you're going to see the colors change, and that is when students start taking the next generation test, and the rigor increased. So you can see our trend line there. In 2017, we did take a dip, kept on going down. And just to remind you, there was no test in 2020 due to the pandemic. That's why we're missing that. and then we are starting to pick back up.
Yeah, and in this one, I just want to point out if people are watching at home. So here, the higher the number gives us our more proficient or exceeding expectation students, but it's that dip in 2016 to 17 is really hard to measure what it is. It looks like a significant dip, but everybody took a dip that year because of that shift happening, so it doesn't really equate well.
And to go to Dr. Kiska's point, in all of these MCAS slides, you want the top 2 portions to be your biggest portions.
Which is the blue, the bottom on this graph, but it's the top 2 groups.
Right.
Yeah.
That you want. Go to the next one. Now continue on, and this is our MCAS ELA historical data with grade 10. So to the left is the legacy test, the older test. Please remember again, they had no test in 2020. And you can see that we had an interesting trend going here, but we're starting to pick back up. So it's interesting, and we went down because of the rigor, but then we went back up, down again, and we're trending back up again. This is math grades 3 through 8. Again, the left side is our legacy test. The right side is next generation. So you can see we did take a dip when it switched the testing parts. We kept going down in next generation. Our lowest point was 51%. Then we went to 57, and we're back up to 61. So we're having an upwards trend in math grades 3 through 8. For math grade 10, again, left-hand side is your legacy test. Right-hand side is next generation. Please remember, 2020, there was no test. And you can see again, we took that dip as pretty much every school in the whole state did once we switched the type of test. We went up a little bit after that first year. We're going down. The trend is going down right now in math. Sorry, this is still me?
Yes.
Okay. And this is our science and tech grades 3 through 8. Please remember they're tested in 5th grade and in 8th grade, just to give you some perspective. So even though it says 3 through 8, the students are only tested in grades 5 through 8. Again, the colors to the left is the legacy test, the colors to the right is the next generation test. You saw when we first took it, we did take a dip. We further went down in 2021, that is the year after the pandemic, but we have been going back up. Now, there's a special caveat with this. So this was during the pandemic. We did not have, for grade 10, they obviously did not take the test during the pandemic, but because of the pandemic and the ramifications for students, remember, this is a high-stakes test that every high schooler has to pass a science test in order to graduate. So what they did for the class of 2023, they waived that requirement. So you're going to see 2 years that you're missing on this graph. So you're seeing 2020 is missing and 2021 is missing. Okay, so that's why you see that gap. Again, you know, the colors to the right are your next generation tests. As with every district, we took a dip when they made the switch, but we are starting to go back up again.
We're going to swing to how our MCAS compares with surrounding districts. So Joni gave you the historical for just Holliston. Now we'll look at our neighbors and how we compare. This has a lot of information, this chart, and just for everyone's perspective, the districts are ranked in alphabetical order, not in necessarily any other order. So in the next few slides, you're going to see these numbers in actual graphs and how we rate. I will say a couple of highlights for Holliston. Again, there's 9 districts we're looking at. We're 3rd best in 3 to 8 math, 2023, and grade 10 math growth, 3rd best. And then you'll see a slide, we're actually the highest ELA growth of all 9 districts, 3 to 8.
Yeah, in the middle, it's the meeting or exceeding expectations at the percentile, and then the growth is the 3-year trends for student growth percentile.
The spread between some of these is kind of incredible, just like, 53% for Franklin to 75% for Hopkins. It's huge.
So you'll notice in the next few slides, Holliston has a star on it. So you'll see here again, of the 9 districts, we're 4th as far as grades 3 to 8 ELA. And then grade 10, there's where we land as far as the 9 districts surrounding us.
Again, from meeting and exceeding, we're looking at.
Correct. Feel free to stop if you want to ask questions or anything on these.
I don't have questions, but will we post this on our website? Because I'm sure folks would love to take a look at this
Yeah,
presentation.
it's already up there.
Yep,
It's already-
and
okay,
tomorrow I'm
great.
going to be sending out just some other presentations that we've done as just sort of like these are things.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
Joni, this is yours, I believe.
Yes, so now we're switching, and we're looking at student growth percentile, just for this one slide. We're looking at ELA for grades 3 through 8, and just to remind you, the student growth percentile is a child's progress in comparison to the progress of other students in Massachusetts. So it represents a percentage of students that the student did better than on the test. So, and the scores range from 1 to 99. And now we're not in SGPs again, and we're looking at math comparisons for grades 3 through 8. And as Mr. McLeod mentioned, that Holliston's always going to be starred there, so you can see exactly where we are. And you can see that we did exceed other districts. 3 districts are exceeding more than us right now. Moving on to grade 10 math, you can see that currently we are doing better than 4 other districts, and 4 other districts are doing better than us in 10th grade math.
I think this is me. So again, this is swinging over to science, grades 5 and 8. The other slide said 3 to 8. Like Joni said, it's actually grades 5 and 8 only where we test science. So this is where we fared of the 9 districts, 62%. And then grade 10, again, 2023 science, this is where we landed.
And this is that science requirement, just to remind everybody, they have to graduate.
All right, so, I mentioned it a little bit earlier about that shift in 2017. There was a definite shift to, there was a lot, I was not here, but I have heard that there was a huge investment in project-based learning and innovation to increase collaboration and critical thinking, and that's wonderful. You can have project-based learning and innovation and also focus on curriculum standards and still have high rankings. They don't have to be in isolation. But that shift did happen, and there was a movement away from data analysis and MCAS results. We've also talked about recently the curriculum review cycle. In most districts and here in the past, there had been a 5-year rotation looking at each content area. We've already shared with you, these are the dates that Joni's shared in the past. This is the last time that curriculum review cycles have happened in Holliston for social studies, performing arts, or language, math, ELA, science, and wellness. And that's why, because math and ELA are such a focus and should be in all districts, we started with our math. It's been 10 years, and that's why we're getting ready to purchase new materials for that. Wellness was done in 2020, which was the most recent, but that happened just as COVID was shutting everything down, and nothing was done with that during, that data. We didn't have any opportunity to implement, but Ida Pappas is working with our wellness teachers now. There's definitely a lot of work that we can do, and we have some information from that wellness audit, which was an outside audit from 2020. But, that's a lot of time that's been delayed, and we need to catch up on these review cycles. So some recommendations, and again, what we choose to do as a district and a community is a group decision. We're just here to share some of the things that we've put together that we see as areas that we could focus on. And I see a typo there. So one thing is to purchase a dashboard to streamline the data analysis of strengths and weaknesses. It may not look like it, but a lot of work went into this presentation because we had to do a lot of this manually. Thank you, Jody, Renee, again, and Dan for taking this and creating their own data dashboards. When you have a system, you can do this so quickly and constantly, and we wouldn't be trying to reinvent the wheel here, but this is the first time we've
If
done
you
it.
would add up all their hours, I mean, we're talking days, both of them worked on this, so.
And then we also focused on thinking about the equity audit. We really want to look with an equity lens at all of our curricular offerings, and then we tied this right to the strategic plan. These are all things that we are focused on with our 5-year plan, and the equity audit was one of those initiatives. We need to continue that pre-K to 12 plus alignment of the curriculum in all areas under ARCH 3, teaching learning. I think sometimes people think when you start looking at data and talking about curriculum and mapping curriculum, it means we're going to disempower them and take away their teaching ability. That's not what good teaching is. There should be some equity for students that we know that we're getting the curriculum frameworks because that's what we're looking at. Like all these districts that we're talking about, we're comparing what they're doing as well. We're all supposed to teach those standards, and that's what goes into the college preparation as well. So we have to look at curriculum frameworks. In order to do that well, we align the curriculum, we map it out. But then how we teach it should be up to the teacher and how they put their flair to it. You do not have to do away with innovation and project-based learning. You can do that. It's that balance. With the pendulum just went one way. It went, for a while, it seems like the district really focused on data, and that's when our rankings were the highest. And then we did a complete shift, not looking at the data and really looking at innovation and project-based learning. I think that middle ground is so important, doing both. And I see that we're doing great things here, but our students will soar even more if we try to get that balance back a little bit more. And then also making sure that curriculum review cycle happens. We have outdated materials. Our students deserve better. You heard the teachers, some of you last week, or you watched the presentation. It's I think I'm sending that out tomorrow as well. Mm-hmm. And if you think about that, 10 years without new math resources. First of all, from an equity lens, look at some of the names, look at some of the cultures lacking in our materials. When you have, just from an equity lens, the outdated materials there, we're not focused on that. But even more importantly, how students learn and how we instruct them has changed immensely in the last 10 years. So we're very excited. You heard the excitement in our teachers' voices last week when they were sharing their enthusiasm for these new purchases that are going to happen. So, and then a couple more recommendations would be identify the gaps in learning where state standards need to be more consistently taught. I talked to Carol Kavanaugh because in some areas they're ranked 1 in Hopkinton, right? They explicitly focus.
Of Hopkinton?
I'm sorry?
That's the superintendent.
Yes, sorry, Dr. Kavanaugh is the superintendent and my colleague in Hopkinton. And I asked her, where her focus. She showed me her presentation. They dove deep into analyzing standards. That's how I've always done in my previous roles as curriculum director. We have not been diving deep into looking at where are we lacking, where are our areas of growth, where are our areas of strength. It'd be nice to know what we're doing well and what we're not. You really need to dive into the high-need students. That work can happen, and it should happen, but we just haven't been doing it in the same way that we had in the past. And then we know next year's focus is going to be really heavy in professional development, all content areas, especially with new curriculum rollout for math materials. We want to focus a ton of time on that. We're not looking to necessarily add any new initiatives, really focusing on diving deep into the curriculum and supporting teachers with new materials and some relearning the curriculum frameworks that have not been embedded into some of our projects and instruction. Again, I mentioned it earlier, analyzing that longitudinal data. I don't have access to a lot of it. We just had not been collecting it. And I do believe, Principal Liz, from our conversations, that's something you have a real interest in that and working with our counselors. So we will be collecting it now, so we won't have to reinvent it and recreate it. We'll be able to share that out on a regular basis. And we've suggested we may want to consider, do we want to have some kind of exam requisite for AP classes? Currently, the model for a lot of our AP classes, it's that they're getting 3 terms versus 2, which equates to, as far as the amount of time in the class, is 1.5 years of instruction. Should be 1.5 years of instruction. So that is it for tonight.
That was a lot.
It is a lot. And I didn't want to bore you with all of that, but I wanted to be able to give you some food for thought and decide what you wanted to do with this information.
No, I found it really interesting, and I appreciate it. I've got a couple additional follow-ups, and I see the recommendation about encouraging kids to take the AP test, or requiring, rather, for them to take the AP test. My only hesitation on that is 242 students took at least one AP, and we have some students that took 5, some that took 4, some that took 3, some that took 2. 242 times $100, right? So either, I mean, we'd be asking some families to pay $400 or $500 per child, and that is absolutely an equity issue. Sure. And then I'm not sure that the budget. I mean, we're talking a significant amount of money.
Yeah, and it may be that we just put a different emphasis or encouragement on it versus any kind of requisite. This would be something that the school would consider and do.
And fee waivers are available, right?
Sorry?
Fee waivers are available for folks.
Yes.
But if you look at what they're looking at, they want percentage of students who took at least one exam.
Right.
So the requirement could be you need to take at least one AP exam if you're taking APs. So you could be limiting it and say, not if you take an AP, you need to take that AP exam, and that's kind of low hanging fruit. Not to say that the $100 could still not be, something that.
And we're not even saying you should do this. We're just, these are some of the things that we.
No, but these seem like sort of low hanging fruit, that as long as we can ensure that there's equitable access to being able to take the exams, and we're not putting anyone in a position to.
At least one seems
At least
very
one, yeah.
reasonable.
Yeah, I would not have a requirement, or at least like a very minimal one, just because I think that would deter people from taking AP classes in the first place. Because a lot of people are very intimidated by the exam and just want to take maybe a slightly harder class in a subject that they're interested in and don't really care about getting college credit. So I think enforcing taking the AP exam is gonna kind of.
But if you said if you are going to take any AP classes, you have to take at least one AP exam.
Yeah.
So that way, if you
Keeping
take
it-
5, you
that's
only
your-
have to take one.
Yeah, I think that's fine, but just making sure it's not like
A hard requirement for every single
Yeah,
class would deter.
Yeah.
I don't think we
Yeah, no, I don't
don't
think
want
that'd
this
be
to,
right.
yeah. That was just a suggestion that maybe
Yeah.
that minimal requirement would be that they do the minimum 1. If you're taking 5, then you try it in 1.
Right. That being said, a lot of other districts require if you take AP, you take the exam. It's just standard practice.
Yes.
It's a cultural practice.
And I would be remiss if I didn't piggyback on this and say that while we've had block scheduling for 26 years, there has been an increase in AP enrollment and AP course offerings throughout those 26 years that we have not been able to catch up to because of our block scheduling, right? Like when we implemented block scheduling, no one took more than 2 or 3 APs in their high school career, but that's not the case anymore. So I think that may be one answer to why the other districts have sort of run away with at least that aspect of the rankings.
You could be right, Amanda.
I think you know my feelings.
I have something else I want to talk about. If we could go back to slide 26, and I'm not trying to put anybody on the spot, but you had invited the fact that this is the beginning of a conversation, so I just wanted to go through this one. This is the MCAS math historical data, and I find this really interesting, especially because it's reflective of grade 10. Because I just want to talk about, the difference between where our kiddos were, say 2019 at 83% to 73% in 23, right? A 10% drop. I just want to reflect on the fact that those 2019 10th graders, we had leveled math at Ramps. We had an accelerated math program in 7th grade. We were covering all of algebra in 8th grade. And then those kids moved into 10th grade and we saw a score of 83%, right? Now I just want to look at 2023 because those are our current juniors. So those were the kids during COVID. They were 7th graders. So they were in accelerated math, but it stopped as of March 13th. They were put in classrooms back into remote classrooms with 80 kids, and it no longer became, so accelerated math stopped for them. They also had a very different algebra experience, right? They did not cover all of algebra, and I just want to make sure, is this something we're talking about within the math review committee? Because as the recommendations I saw, and I absolutely think it's important, utilize the equity audit to examine curriculum offerings, absolutely. But are we also utilizing our math review or English review or whatever review to examine curriculum offerings relative to rigor, right? I mean, and so I just want to make sure we're looking at this very important historical data on 10th grade MCAS results and a look back to what those kids had that got them there, that got them to the 83%. Because when we scroll down and look at the map to comparative districts, right, for those 10th graders, I want to look at us and I see, you know, where we fell in, and we can look at the 10th graders in surrounding districts like Dover-Sherburne or Hopkinton or Ashland that still do offer that leveled curriculum.
Full algebra
in
in 8th grade.
And algebra in 8th grade. So I just want to make sure, and I guess that's also reflective of slide 33, where we come in, note the comps are on 34. We come in at about 73%, right? And we're looking at districts like Ashland that has them at 77, right? And Hopkinton at 88. And Dover-Sherburne at 89. So is this part of something the math review committee is reflecting on while they look at middle school math offerings?
So they have talked about it. I sat in for a little bit of their discussion 2 days ago, or yesterday, it's all blending.
Yesterday.
It was just yesterday, to have this conversation. I think what's very challenging right now is you've got all these things happening simultaneously. We've got new math curriculum coming in place and want to spend a lot of energy building up the rigor and the instructional practices of our teachers, which is going to be a big focus next year. At the same time, you've got an equity steering committee that's going to look at any recommendations they're going to make. Now, I don't think our equity steering committee is looking to weigh in on leveling or not leveling. I don't think that they'll get there because they have so many recommendations. They'll talk about some focus areas. I also think that there's a lot of challenges with the math review committee in isolation making a recommendation, because it doesn't just impact math. It impacts all subjects, and the reason it does is because when you track students in general, whatever grade it is, you end up tracking them for most of the rest of the day. So it's also going to impact science and ELA and all of those things. And we also need to look from an equity lens at the data that's showing that some of our lower offering levels are disproportionately showing numbers of special needs and ELL students. So I think that has to be part of the conversation. If we have it just in isolation with the math review, they may make a recommendation, but it's not incorporating all of these other things that are happening. If I had to make it, I personally don't feel confident making changes right now with what I know and the data that we haven't collected versus what we have collected. I would, if it were just up to me, I would say let's pause and not make any changes for next year until we've gotten more of this data with the equity, with the NIAS report, all of these things. I'm not suggesting one way or the other. I'm just worried about making any additional changes, giving the investment in the curriculum and the time that we've kind of fallen behind with new resources and wanting to dedicate and building up and empowering our teachers with the instructional practices, with the new curriculum resources, and then have these other pieces of information that would help us make a very informed decision.
And the one thing that has impacted those scores too is that we currently, I don't know, you would all know better than me, but the math review was not done since 2011. When was the last time the middle school had a resource? They don't have a resource right now. The high school is not using an updated resource at all either. So that also impacts. We have not been using curricular resources.
Do you mean textbooks?
Consistent, yeah.
Correct.
But
I mean, no high school uses textbooks anymore.
We are looking
Digital.
at having a resource, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because they want consistency. There's a lot of high schools that do right now.
Some do.
Yeah, there's a
Most
lot.
don't.
But still, if we have a math review committee, well, why not empower them to make a recommendation? Have the equity steering group make a recommendation, the NEASC report make recommendations, and then that all gets boiled up to the higher level. We throw it all together and we look at all the recommendations together and then make decisions. I just think that it's...
Well, with all due respect, right now what we're having to do is 18 staff members were out from Placentino yesterday. No staff members could attend math curriculum review.
From Placentino.
Placentino or Rams. So the
That's one
problem,
meeting. I mean, you know, like...
yeah, but we need to concentrate on getting resources into teachers' hands right now to impact students. That should be the main concentration of the math curriculum.
Is this what you're hearing from the teachers, that they're lacking?
I'm sorry?
This is what you're hearing from the teachers, the number one thing they need is a resource?
That's what, if you were at math curriculum review, they were asking, the high school teachers are asking.
The high school teachers are begging
Yes.
for some resources to help align their work. I
Absolutely.
think there's been a lack of resource. So I think when we say like textbook, like, I mean, I know you're saying like we don't use textbooks anymore, but they don't have any resources that they're using to help align.
They're creating
So-
a lot of this themselves,
Right.
and then that
So
leads
they're
to
creating.
inequities, and
So I wouldn't say that it's
unfortunately,
called necessarily like a textbook, but it's like something that helps align and pacing guides, like on those pieces. That's what's missing.
yeah.
And look, I get that this is a lot of work, but saying, okay, we had 18 people out on a day, you know, the week before the winter break, maybe that meeting shouldn't have been planned then. I don't know. I mean, I'm just...
That's not the only time though, so that we've had a big chunk of people out just on curriculum review days, that we've not been able to move some work forward because some schools cannot send them because of the attendance rate at the school.
I think the issue that you're
Yeah,
going to
so-
find, regardless of whether the review makes a recommendation or not, they're going to need to discuss that with other content areas because it'll be impactful to others, whether they agree with that decision. But then also, the Equity Steering Committee is just starting in January. You're not going to get a report from them until April, May. You know, I think this is a very important decision regardless of which direction we go, and I certainly don't want to rush it. And I want to make sure we do it well regardless of what we do.
I'm really concerned if we rush it, you're making a huge decision that's going to impact a lot of underrepresented groups. And if we rush it, we're going to impact them in a more negatively way. And to add a bias in there. I mean, I think you almost have to have a committee that is looking at leveling across everything. You're going to have to, there was a study you did before I got here on start times that you brought in experts for a year and a half. I mean, it's giving that thought and level to that. Leveling is huge. Leveling has a lot of impacts. But I think people need to know what those impacts are and go in with the eyes wide open, because it definitely impacts students in different ways.
I'm not sure we want to tie the math curriculum review to the start times debate, but I guess why are we starting to think about this? Why are we starting to think about this now? The leveling part being not part of the math curriculum review, because I mean, for as long as I've been on the committee, which admittedly has not been long, the leveling decision was sort of a cornerstone of the review, at least as far as what the community was interested in and what I thought discussions were happening at the curriculum review.
So they have had a lot of discussion. I haven't been in all of that because I've sat in a couple of times. What I'm saying is that as of right now, there are some people that feel very strongly one way or the other. There are some people like myself that don't feel comfortable making a decision at this point, given all these other pieces of data that we just recently got, like the NEASC report, which we haven't even started talking about, which Mr. List is going to be sharing in January. And they're all right now living in silos, and we have to somehow come to make decisions with all of these kind of moving in the same direction. That's why I'm concerned about, particularly with the equity, one of the things that we know is in that report is looking at de-leveling through middle school. I don't think we should be doing that right now. I think we need to really look at what we're doing right now and what we're doing well and what's not going as well. One thing I do want to point out to the community listening is there was nothing in any of the reports that I've read as of yet that anyone's looking at de-leveling high school levels. That's a misconception that is not in any of the reports, so that was not even discussed anywhere, and I don't want to have people think that the district is looking to consider de-leveling or leveling 6 through 12. That wasn't even part of the conversation. So I want to just take that fear off the table. There's lots of research on, both sides of the coin here, and some of the teachers don't seem comfortable having that decision in isolation. You'll have others that do feel very comfortable coming to you with a recommendation. I don't think you're going to get consensus, as well, given all these other things that people are waiting to hear about as well.
When you have 18 people, I mean, you rarely do you have a perfect consensus, but you come up with a group consensus based upon sort of the overall thinking, and that's voting, or at least.
And I think it's just important for us to understand their position, right? What some of the cons are, and then look to other districts and how they might have mitigated that as well, right? So if you're saying that.
So would you be comfortable in receiving what that committee feels that the pros and cons are to both sides?
I think it needs to be an ongoing discussion that we're open and transparent with the community about. And I guess the answer is yes, speaking for myself, I would be open to that because I also would like to, I mean, I don't think we're not living in a silo here. Other communities have had to deal with the detriments to it and probably there are ways to mitigate it. I'd like to at least have the opportunity to explore it and understand it better. So yes, I think it's.
And I personally don't have a strong leaning one way or the other, whether to me it's less about the levels and what are we doing for rigorous instruction. And the biggest concern I have personally as we look at the equity piece is what are our entry levels so that we're not putting up barriers so that if you get stuck or trapped in a level, there's no way out of that level.
Right.
That to me is
Very important.
And I think
That was the
equity.
that's the bigger part I worry about is if we, whatever way we go, making sure that we create protocols and procedures that students we don't lock doors. Developmentally, things kick in.
Absolutely.
So that's my bigger concern, and I think that's where the equity lens would be helpful to have all of that information.
And that was a huge concern spoken at the math curriculum night, right? And that was, a lot of parents spoke up about that.
I think we all want the same. We all want what's best for kids, ultimately.
So we can order math curriculum now, though, without knowing what is going to be taught in 8th grade, what is going to be taught in 7th grade even potentially?
Yes, because they're digital resources, so financially it's the same cost, and we'd be able to switch by the numbers of enrollment. So
It's like a per student, not like you're buying one thing to use.
There might be slight difference in costs. I don't have the quotes yet, but it's
Negligible.
Yeah, negligible, because you're going to be shifting the student to a different platform versus buying a book and throwing it out. So that won't stall that at all.
Yeah, math textbooks are a thing of the past right now. For anything that we're piloting, there are new textbooks. There could be workbooks attached to it, but there is no textbook.
But the workbook would be a consumable annually.
In the younger
Correct.
grades, yeah.
Correct. And that's what we currently have in the younger grades right now, too.
It exists now.
Right, but I'm just saying, but that would be consumed annually, so if you switched the next year, you'd have to rebuy that anyway.
Yeah, exactly. That's true. All right.
All right.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for all the hard work and everything. That was. You can't tell how much work went into this, by the way. I put together charts and stuff like this. To get the consistency that you have is it takes a lot of work.
It was.
Jerry Renee Harrington.
It was fun. Did we say fun?
Yeah, we geeked out on it.
All right, so moving on. Everyone good?
Yes.
We're going to go to the all interesting budget presentation from Mr. Bidet on our fixed costs.
You can put it up there.
Thank you, Mr. Liz.
Thanks, Mr. Lewis.
It's on the back, yeah. Hey, I'm on before 9 o'clock. Woohoo!
Supposed to be done by 8:20.
I can filibuster for a few minutes if you need to.
Well, just, you know, containing your
You know, we moved some things from the bottom up, so
We're done. Thank you.
That's right.
Any
Keep it quick.
questions? Containing your packets is the part one of the FY25 budget process, not payroll and not special ed costs. What you'll see here is, you know, more than half of them would be level funded. Susan's gonna get it up any second.
Here we go.
Nope.
Wrong one.
Back one down.
This one.
There you go. And
It's not showing.
no,
Okay,
she's
all right.
working.
Multiple clips.
Okay.
And there's a bigger version somewhere.
I'm trying to pull it up here. It's not letting me.
We'll get to 9 o'clock.
I'm having some technical difficulties here when I get it.
If everybody has it up, I'll progress down. I'll just talk about the major changes. Jumping down to transportation.
Can you share?
Shoving down to transportation, major changes there. I'm projecting about $144,000 increase. That's part of the contractual increase, cost of diesel going up. Foster and homeless children, that is part of that number, the transportation for those. And an offset charge. We did receive ARPA money that we're planning on using this year. We'll see if it creates a favorability for transportation that we'll be able to carry forward. But for right now, it's what we put into the budget for FY24. So that wouldn't be available in 25 right now is my projection. Next big one down is simply custodial services. That's the contractual increase for a contract that already exists, so it's non-negotiable at this point. Heating of buildings, it's an increase in rates. Put about what I put in, let me just check quickly. I think it's 5%, no, 75 cents, sorry, 75 cents on 110,000 gallons of fuel. Next one down is utility services, which is electricity, telephones, et cetera, of that nature. The increase there is of similar nature, where it's about a 10% increase, but only on we're locked in for our supply that's on the delivery piece. So, maintenance of buildings, I added 10,000 per school, just as we're starting to have more and more needs. I put that in as well. Nothing is a substantial enough project per se to turn into capital, but so again, that's where 40,000 is there. Insurance for active employees, that's our long-term disability policy. It's based on a factor that then gets applied to the wages. I put about a 5% increase in wages between increase in staff and potential increase in staff and wage increases over time. And then tuition for the mass schools, which is Norfolk Aggie, which included capital, which I did reach out to Desi about. We had they added a capital charge for this year. It would be $33,000. We haven't paid this bill yet because I had a question out to Desi about that, and so I went through my business services people, and I guess Bristol County got a legislative exemption to be able to do that. Norfolk doesn't. So they're investigating it for me and contacting Norfolk, and they're pretending to be the bad cop, even though they're going to blame us. But that's okay. We've had battles with Norfolk before other things. So that's in there right now, the capital charge, with a COLA on it for next year. But it may disappear, so there may be an extra $35,000 there, so that we won't do. And then our online courses is also in that number. So
with the additional $40,000 for buildings help, fixing ceiling tiles and stuff from the sections that we have replaced the roof from already?
I mean, it would allow some inventory for that, but there's not $10,000 in ceiling tiles.
No, but in general. We do have budget money for that. This is more of, I don't say major systems, because it's not major systems, but it's like more than minor systems that are failing. I mean, we're replacing a lot more motors. We're having to bring in contractors for things now, where before they were more simple repairs. So it's going up as it's going to with buildings that are aging. I mean, Placentino, will be 27 years old next year, so. Any other questions? Let's go first, I guess, on a good pace. So some big numbers in there, obviously, and we're obviously going into a tough budget year. We've started looking at the revenue coming from the town side, and a lot of sort of one-time factors that we don't need to go into here, because I'm going to take my finance committee hat off, I would say. But one thing I did notice this week is that you guys posted for an administrative assistant at the central office. Is that a replacement?
Right. So about a year ago, we added a central registrar administrative assistant position in customer service at the front office, at the central office front desk. And the person that was in that position requested a transfer to the open position in Mr. Burdet's department. We have consolidated some of the things, like for example, one of the things that was on the plate of the previous person, and I'm sorry, what's the title of that role?
So office assistant, that's all, it's within
in Mr. Maday's department, that role was collecting a lot of the tuition for full day K. So as things have changed, we've actually taken off some of the responsibilities of that role. So we may have less of a need now for these positions in central office as a result of being able to shift some of the workload.
And Dan, the original position was really created coming from actually the strategic plan, where they talked about the fact that many families who English may not be their first language coming to town, that there was really nobody to kind of greet them and lead them down the path. Let me get that Susan's head here. Lead them down that path of how to navigate. And we came up with the idea of having one person do registration, because if you have 2 or 3 children, or 4 or more, you may be in multiple schools, so you're going to each school, providing documentation, et cetera, et cetera. So we're trying to make it a more friendly environment in doing that, which is why the position, we created the position and went forward with it. So that's the real origin there.
But to be clear, the posted position is not a new position.
It is
On the
correct.
contrary, it's a consolidation of 2 previous positions.
So actually, it's the position that we posted last year. It was a new position last year. We hired someone who now has transferred to the other open position. So this position is empty from last.
So it's a replacement. It was just
It's a replacement from last year.
But I think maybe we should take this to budget. But just given everything going on, I think it might make sense to sort of pause on this as we look towards the entire budget, at least as far as hiring the replacement for it.
We could consider pausing that and then deciding if we want to postpone and then revisit.
At least as far as when we go through the budget
we could
process.
pause for now.
Fill in for now and see if we can make that.
We have a budget meeting coming up beginning of January, so we can discuss that then. So.
Okay.
Great. Is that all for you?
I'm done. You're done with me.
A long time ago. Okay, so we're done with presentations, and are we? Right? Yes. On to policy.
I have one policy for us to consider. This is a first read of policy IMGA. It's regarding service animals in schools. We have a policy IMG, which was dealing with both therapy animals and service animals, because they didn't have that, and now MASC has asked us to kind of extract those from each other because the requirements are absolutely different. So this is essentially a lot of their guidance policy, but with a few small tweaks. And it's a first read, so I have to read the entire thing through. In addition, I'll be bringing IMG back to you, which will talk about specifically therapy animals in schools, and that will be changed, but it also needs to go to the Wellness Council because there's some discussion around making sure that if we're considering allowing therapy animals to be in classrooms, how are we mitigating for any of the issues around allergies and other things? And that was, so we sent that off we're sending off to the Wellness Council for them to talk about it with the nurse manager and the others and Jess Beatty and a group there, so to get their feedback before we bring it to you. So anyway, I'm just going to read IMGA in its entirety, and then you can reach out to me later with any feedback you have, and I'll bring it back to you once we've done that. Okay. Holliston Public Schools is committed to providing a high-quality educational program to all students in a safe and healthy environment that welcomes all students of all abilities. HPS complies with Massachusetts law concerning the rights of persons with guide or assistance dogs and with federal law, and will permit such animals on school premises and on school transportation. For purposes of this policy, a service animal includes any dog that has been individually trained to do the work or perform tasks for the benefit of an individual with a disability. The regulations further state that a public entity, quote, a public entity shall make reasonable modifications in policies, practices, or procedures to permit the use of a miniature horse by an individual with disability if the horse has been individually trained to do work or perform tasks for the benefit of the individual with a disability, end quote. Service animals perform some of the functions and tasks that individuals with disabilities cannot perform themselves. Service animals are not pets. There are several kinds of service animals that assist individuals with disabilities. Examples include, but are not limited to, animals that, assist individuals who are blind or have severe sight impairments as, quote, seeing eye dogs, end quote, or, quote, guide dogs, end quote. alert individuals with hearing impairments to sounds, pull wheelchairs or carry and pick up items for individuals with mobility impairments, assist mobility impaired individuals with balance. HPS shall not assume or take custody or control of or responsibility for any service animal or the care of feeding thereof. The owner or person having custody and control of the animal shall be liable for any damage to persons, premises, property, or facilities caused by the service animal, including but not limited to cleanup, stain removal, etc. If, in the opinion of the school principal or authorized designee, any service animal is not in the control of its handler, or if it is not housebroken, the service animal may be excluded from the school or program. The service animal can also be excluded if it presents a direct and immediate threat to others in the school. The parent or guardian of the student having custody and control of the animal will be required to remove the service animal from HPS premises immediately upon notification by the school principal. If any student or staff member assigned to the classroom in which a service animal is permitted suffers an allergic reaction to the animal, the person having custody and control of the animal will be required to remove the animal to a different location designated by the building principal or designee, and an alternate plan will be developed with appropriate HPS staff. This plan could include the reassignment of the person having custody and control of the animal to a different classroom. This will also apply if an individual on school transportation suffers an allergic reaction. In this case, an alternate plan will be developed in coordination with appropriate HPS and transportation staff and will include the involvement of the parents, guardians of the student. When a student will be accompanied by a service animal at school or in other HPS facilities on a regular basis, such staff member or such student's parents or guardian, as well as the animal's owner and any other person who will have custody and control of the animal, will be required to sign a document stating that they have read and understood the foregoing. The superintendent of schools or their designee shall be responsible for developing procedures to accommodate a student's use of assistance animal in HPS facilities and on school transportation vehicles. Legal references are Section 28, Chapter 28, CFR Part 35. The source is from the MASC 2023, and this is from today, and policy reference of IMG therapy animals in schools.
I think the version we're looking at is just slightly different. We can change the district to HPS or something.
I think,
It was supposed to.
I think unfortunately it didn't get into the folder because it was so late when we.
It should be in the folder, it's just that it's not.
The link, it may not be the link.
Oh.
The wrong link,
Well, it
I'm
should have
sorry,
been.
because I don't have that.
Oh, the wrong link is in there?
Substantive.
Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's fine, I
That
don't-
should have been
yeah.
with it, okay, anyway. Okay,
Great.
so reach out to me if you have questions.
Okay.
Suggestions. Thanks.
All right, getting on to central office administrators updates. Sorry, Counselor.
I'm going to say nothing.
Okay.
Wait, actually, I have something.
But you're not next.
Okay, I thought you were passing on all of us.
No.
Okay, go ahead, okay.
Dr. Bernard?
I do have some things too. I wanted to thank everyone that came for the Math Community Forum on Wednesday, December 13th. Please look for updates and follow-up in early January. And I appreciate everybody that took this survey too. It's much appreciated. Please, that is posted on the Teaching and Learning website along with the recording now. So both the presentation and the recording, so please make sure you check that out. Also posted on the Teaching and Learning website is a wellness newsletter, just to make sure everybody understands. That was recently passed. So in 2023, there are comprehensive health and physical education frameworks that were passed. Those had not been updated since 1999. A lot of things have happened in the world since then. So you can see a lot of different changes. Please make sure to check out that newsletter and check out the new newsletters. And I just want to remind everyone that the health and physical education framework is very different than the science and technology framework, and that was last updated in 2016. So these are Massachusetts state frameworks that we as a public school are mandated to teach those standards to our students. So please check out both resources, and thanks again. Yes?
I just want to say I really appreciate the survey you sent out, particularly that you included questions about use of outside tutoring, since that was something I specifically asked the committee to look at, and I really appreciate that. And I look forward to hearing about that data, and I encourage everyone, if you have not already done so, to fill out the survey.
When is it closing?
It did close, but if anybody would like the opportunity, they can actually email me, and I would be more than happy to take some more responses.
Thanks.
And
Yes.
I also just wanted to reiterate, thank you for having
Yes,
the
absolutely.
night. And I just, there was one ask, I really appreciated the survey. I think it was a great opportunity for parents and guardians to give feedback. But I was wondering if it would be possible to open the survey to high schoolers and middle schoolers, because I think their thoughts on it might really inform the committee and be helpful. So.
Yeah. Probably can
We
make a
can put
copy of
something
it.
together
Make
for
a
them,
copy
sure.
of it and then send it to
I
everybody.
think some of the questions might not be pertinent, but absolutely we
Some
can
of
do
them may
that.
not,
I think
but
it's a great idea.
a way to collect feedback.
Sure. And just another huge shout out to the Math Curriculum Review Committee. The teachers did an incredible job, and they represented our teachers really well. So I appreciate all of them coming out, and James Lavasser.
Joni, do you think that you could just open up the survey like through, if you're not going to look at the data until after? Because I feel like I probably started it but didn't press submit. I'm just starting to feel like I could have done, I'm just saying.
So I can send it out tomorrow with my thing, but I don't think anyone's going to read it.
They may
Send it out
not, but I
tomorrow.
just, if it's open, like, rather
We can
than
resend after the break.
it'll be blocking me and saying, no, you can't
Would
do
you
it
like it to
now.
be resent after the break? Do you think honestly anybody's going to look at it right
Sure.
now?
I think we can do both.
I can do both, but I just,
That's fine. I didn't know it was
Just humorous.
Sure, we can do that.
Like,
not
if you're,
till the end of
if you're not going into the data right now, just leave it open.
So the
That's all I'm
next
saying.
math review meeting is until the end of January?
Yeah.
Maybe the week when we're all back and an
Yeah.
opportunity for students.
I think we got lost in the weeds.
You're welcome.
It was a busy month.
It was, I just feel like got lost in the weeds for me, I'm sorry.
Busy, Evan?
Sharon and Aditya, you're gonna take the survey, right?
Sure.
Thank you.
Try to go into it.
I wanted my kids to do
Mr. Boudet.
Thank you.
Keep in mind, we're going to get to you later, too, for some other things. So
That's okay. It's okay. Could be my show tonight. I participated in a Zoom call with the National School Lunch Program Administrative Review Team, actually a person. They've been here for this whole week, and it was basically the end of the review, and they just wanted to give me a few updates before they give the formal report on what we have to improve on. I'll just quickly go over what they stated. Talk about the cleanliness of the kitchen, the knowledge of the staff, that they were very impressed with the fact of the amount of PD we must be providing them, because they were all very knowledgeable on things like temperature and things of that nature, being ServSafe certified. The students they spoke to seemed to like the offerings, so they appreciated what we were offering there. And the quote was that she felt this was an overall great program. They look at 3 performance standards. The first one deals with financials. They're very happy with the way we use our direct certifications, which is how students get to be on free and reduced lunch now. Now, granted, all lunches are free, but there are still standards that we have to do for free and reduced, because it depends. If you are on free and reduced, you get reimbursed from the feds, as opposed to we get reimbursed from the state. So it is important to do that. They were very happy with the way that we've adopted the direct certification, eliminating paper, and it makes people are able to qualify much quicker by doing that. So they're very happy with that. Our meal counting was great. How we do our point of sale, using our point of sale systems. All of our reimbursed meals checked out, except for one category, which was on half days. We do a grab-and-go lunch program, and we can't do that any longer. We have to be able to identify the children. It's not, we put out 50 lunches and 50 lunches disappear. So we have to work on a plan on how we're going to either have students pre-order, parents pre-order. We have to do something to identify who's actually taking the lunches.
code or something.
Now, they're also supposed to have, she said, 10 minutes or so to eat lunch on campus. And the bus doesn't count as campus.
So most districts moved away a long time ago from not serving lunch on half days. I mean, I thought you were required a long time ago, because my previous districts had always served lunch on half days. We've been doing this for a while, but I think unfortunately the shift has to happen now.
it seems counter to the whole point of
I'm trying to give them.
trying to give kids lunch.
Participation rate, though, they had some statistic on participation rate?
I can certainly get that for you from Lynn.
I'd like to, I'm curious as to, now that it's at free reduced.
It has
like what-
been, I know that it's like literally doubled.
Oh, yeah, it's remarkable.
And that's even with the high school, a quarter of people leave every day, so. Standard 2 is meal patterns, so basically what we're offering. They're very happy with what we do there. There are a few things we have to clean up with regards to posting information about our recipes and things. They call them recipes. Basically, it's an ingredients list. But again, there are things we have to improve there, but they're very happy with what we put together there. And I keep saying we, it's Lynn. I really have absolutely nothing to do with it other than saying hi to her. And then 3 was the general section, which is more operational. So again, they reiterated the piece about staff training. They talked about this specialized training for civil rights for cafeteria workers that has to be worked on. Civil rights. And the wellness policy as well. There's some work that needs to be done there. So we know that. They talked about there's an assessment we have to do that they presented to me, which none of us have ever seen. So that we have to do it. It has to be done every 3 years. So there's a few. The few things we have to clean up. They talked about everybody has to do it. We're just everybody's working towards it. We talked a little bit about and the meal charge policy has to be updated because it says you can't charge for meals, but you don't have to. There is no charging anymore. So it's little things like that. We did talk about breakfast program. We're going to be required next September to have breakfast program in all 4 schools.
Well, good, but
again, we have to have time available for students to eat them. It can be in the classroom, which creates one problem with regards to cleanup and things of that nature, and how much of breakfast time. And the problem I see, especially with breakfast time in the classrooms, is if you didn't order one and now your child is sitting next to some child who has a breakfast, we just have to figure this out. They say they're going to there's about 50 some odd districts who don't offer a breakfast program. She's not sure whether we're counted or not because we do offer breakfast at the high school. So we may be in that 50, we may not be. But again, they do have support. So we'll be working with people, this late winter into spring to try to come up with what we're going to have to do. Obviously, as some of you know, that I'm very concerned about possibly having to adjust start times based on breakfast, but if we have to, we have to. So we'll have to approach that as we go along. So I mentioned start times after 9 o'clock. I just want that notice, just so when everybody's tuned out. So, but otherwise, you mean recorded, taped, really? How old are you? So,
I am old enough to be in
my
protected
time.
class.
So overall, it was a very good review. I've been through a lot of these reviews with the state before, and this was very positive, and we're really making some good progress there. So just want to report that, and good job by Lynn Koenig, our food service director.
Awesome.
Mr. Alford, can I add something? I apologize. I went into the survey. It was still open. So I apologize. I was misinformed. I had not shut it.
Is there a closed date?
When would you like it open until?
Okay, so it's just you have to manually close it?
Yes.
So then let's just leave it open for
yeah, so
for
what
the
we'll do
foreseeable
is
future.
I'll put it in the link tomorrow, that's a
Yes.
note, and then we'll resend
So I had not
something.
shut it. I'm sorry.
Application and-
Thought I did. So it's open. And just so all of you know, we have 192 responses.
Let's go. Okay, let's go. We need more. More responses.
Only 25 are mine.
Okay, can I just say one thing, Mr. Boudet? Two things. My criticisms are, can we just stop with the craisins? Okay, they're collecting them and using them as weapons. Okay, number 2, the multigrain. I am right. They know I'm right. And the multigrain chocolate donuts are not breakfast. I'm just saying.
They're multi-grain, so they qualify.
They're not, but they're donuts. It's counter to Lisa. If she was here, she'd be like,
Wait, donuts aren't breakfast?
No.
Keith does not have it.
Anyway, I'm just saying, as part of the discussion and all this, I think we just, you know what, we were doing really well and before COVID, and I just think we need to rein some of that stuff back in. I call it like the Pop-Tart discussion or whatever.
Another
And
great
the other side of it, though, is they do have have really good salads, at least at the high
They
school.
do,
And some
but
variety.
I'm right
craisins are
about the
fruit
craisins, am I
and
not?
I've never liked craisins. so
Nobody
I'm
likes
just like,
craisins, but they're
because
giving them to them
craisins
for
and-
everything, and my kids are collecting them and using them for fights,
I
okay?
disagree
Train
with
your
all of
children
them, by
better.
the way, but
I'm telling you, I took them away,
I
I'm
will
just
say,
saying.
like, they're very commonly, like, left everywhere.
Yes, that's what I'm saying, they're creating a littering kind of situation.
We'll point that out.
I'm just
So
saying.
since we're on the topic of
know.
craisins, one of my daughters has requested that we put iPads at each of the cafeteria tables so that we can do ordering and the table. So I just figured since we're on the craisin topic, I might as
Here's your
well.
QR code.
So,
It's for your meals
bring
today.
up something we're not going to do, bring that up too? Is that what you're saying?
We're going to Uber Eats delivery too.
Oh, God.
Yeah, there you go.
That's a joke. That is a joke.
That was not a Crismo.
No, it's just going to be Grubhub. Okay, so we're done with updates from central office?
Yes.
Perfect. Dan, good? Since you're here, I might as well.
All right, I'll be quick. Just want to thank-
That one, you know.
No, we have an AI steering committee that met 21 people, 6 staff, 4 students, the rest were parents. We met 4 times, November, December. We're compiling that work. We're going to be sharing a lot of it after the new year, but I just wanted to publicly thank those people that gave up 4 Tuesday nights to come and meet. Again, 6 of our staff were able to join us, so it's great. And 4 high school students.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Are you going to present that information in a digestible way for those who
Yes.
do not have been burying their head in the sand about AI and
We're using
ChatGPT?
We're using AI to help digest it better.
I need it in little bites.
Yes, and we're actually going into senior leadership first,
Okay,
and then the school committee will be hearing about the revisions to the acceptable use policy
great.
as a result of AI.
Thank you.
Since we have Dan here, I want to point this out. SATs moves to the digital format as of March. There is no more paper. And if you registered someone recently for the March SATs, one of the things they ask is, what will you be taking it on? Your own laptop or a school-issued Chromebook? And then you have to download something. So that I just wanted to flag that as something that our students might be seeking help with in January, February, or March leading up into the SATs, because you actually have to download something onto those school-issued Chromebooks in order to take it.
And we did a dry run with the PSAT.
Okay.
That became digital this year, so
Yeah.
we dealt with that in October.
Perfect.
So hopefully we worked out some of those issues.
And then I would be remiss, I guess, when, a few meetings ago, you mentioned that we had purchased or were looking to purchase an add-on that sit on top of Power School to allow reports to be run and flagged. And I just thought, with the 3rd, 4th grade sort of switch and new kids, where are we with sort of the implementation of that to ease sort of those
Yes.
reports?
Thank you for that question. We actually are rolling it out here at the high school first with the Global Citizens Program and computer science endorsement. We're putting alerts on those students in Power School. We're training the nurses on the January PD day to create those alerts for health, because that's a primary concern of many teachers. And so we're looking for those to be pushed out beginning of 2nd semester. So that's early February.
Awesome. Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, reports from our subcommittees, communications.
We have not met. We will make a time to.
Okay. Policy.
We met today. We didn't make another policy date yet. January.
Okay. Budget.
Budget, we met on January 12th. We will have an additional meeting on
Not January 12th.
I'm sorry, December 12th. I'm already there. We'll have our next meeting on January 2nd. So just to update on the December 12th meeting, we received several updates on capital projects, one of which was the high school auditorium wall, which is what becomes impactful to water infiltration around the band hallway. And my understanding was we're getting bids and we anticipate, where are we, Keith?
James made a recommendation to Susan and I for a bid of just under $100,000 to one particular vendor who was here for the site visit. And, again, we trust James's expertise in this area, and it was a bid he wrote, so he would obviously know the best. And the bidder was a responsible bidder, so met all the qualifications. So he's going to award the bid for, and this is for pinning the walls together now, so that we're not worried then about the brick wall falling before we do the bid for the sheathing on the outside. So.
Okay, and do we have any idea of anticipated work start, completion time, anything like that?
I know they were trying to get started as quickly as possible, because, I mean, it's, again, this is money to the bidder. They just have to, acquire the materials and lay out the time. Again, we're not going to be holding it up. It's not something that can't happen during the day, or during school time, so.
Possibly by January 4th, we'll have a better idea of start time?
We'll probably know more by then, yes.
Okay.
But that leaves us probably over the allotment that we currently have been authorized for.
That is the expectation. We haven't got out to bid yet, so we're going to look at once we get the next set of the next bid in. If we go over that, we'll then be prepared to either request more or start gathering our acorns.
Right, and just for the community, part of the delay in this whole project has been that we had someone come out, for a contractor come out, look at it, but then we had to have an engineer come out, and the engineer said you need to do the pinning, it has to come first, and that's...
The concern was that the engineer wasn't confident that the wall would not have collapsed. It's the best way to put it. I mean, that the wall, not that it's an imminent risk now, but if we started removing bricks and putting a flashing in, that there was a risk of the wall, structure degrading.
We also received updates on capital projects, including updates from James Keast in terms of plans at the elementary and RAM's assessments of the roof, and kind of plans over the next few years, also looking into like a solar plan on roof repair. Recently, the MSBA put out, do you want to talk about that? And that's just something we'd like to further explore in budget too.
Yeah, there used to be a rapid repair.
Yeah, there is. We discussed that this week, or emailed this week, and the accelerated repair project they did bring back. The date is March 1st, so I'll work with James on that to investigate if that's the direction we want to go, or if that's in line with his other, the solar, where we get the free roof if we do solar through rebates or in grants or whatever it is. So another state program, which I know we applied for. I don't know if they've done any awarding yet, but we'll find some way to move this along through possible multiple means or multiple sources. So.
Is it $6 million?
Yeah, $6 million projects, multiple projects, things that are, assessments were in need of replacement, but they're on kind of a timetable of when we're going to deal with it. And then the good news is that we are looking into the MSBA program, looking into solar programs that might.
Now, the MSBA, though, will be a partial reimbursement, where that solar one, I believe, is free to...
There's got to be catches. Like, do we own the solar panels after they put them on the roof, or do we lease them?
I won't be here when they're gone, so...
But we need to find out more about that.
Yeah. But just so to be clear, a lot of the water that got into the school over on Monday, right, that was coming from issues with the old flat roof.
It was not with any of the new roofs. The biggest issue we had with Monday, besides 5 inches of rain, was the wind, where wind pushed things in a different direction. We actually had some vent hoods get lifted off of our roof, so water was getting in places that it's supposed to be, the vent hood is supposed to, protect it from. So Monday was not a fun day around here, as I watched a tree come down. So, but yes, here.
Yeah, no, I've seen the video.
I saw the video too.
But I mean, you look, to be clear, a lot of districts are dealing with these issues, but we've also had a lot of issues with water in our schools, so it's sort of compounds upon that. But we are actively looking to address these things.
Absolutely. But again, as I said, because of the wind, there was water in places we've never had water. And so, it's the next phase for us is going to be doing a complete roof inspection again to see if we had seams lift up or things like that. I mean, it's just, again, with that type of wind, other things happen that normally don't happen. So.
Other items that we went through, facility usage rentals, we're working on that. I think we'll have more of an update at our January 4th meeting. We talked about there are surrounding districts that have 24/7 tutoring services or tutoring services available for middle school and high school kids. Did start a conversation about pricing that out, and it was part of our discussion. Update on the SOI, is that?
It's on our agenda.
Is on the agenda for farther down. Okay. Update on FY24 budget. Should we just hand that over to Keith because he didn't do that piece yet, right?
Am I still on the agenda for that, or am I doing it now?
You can. There's a budget update.
Yeah, I can.
No, we can do it now because there's no other. I mean, yeah. No, is there a budget update?
Yeah.
We did our FY25.
We did 25, but he's got an FY24 December financial.
We don't have any more of a specific place for budget update on the agenda other than Keith's update. So go right ahead, Mr. Benet.
Containing your packets is the December budget report. Since it's getting late, I will quickly go through we're still having favorability based on payroll, open positions for paras, a couple of leaves for teachers that are being filled with subs, so payroll favorability on that side, over expenditures or expenditures there for long-term subs, but that's always a wash, usually to our advantage. And then out-of-district tuitions and extra costs are unfavorable as a couple of things have gone the wrong way. So not the wrong way, but a way that is wrong way financially. The recommendation you just made, right now that position is in this number. So if we do pause, so it's not up to date after what was said today. So I didn't put a new one in like in the last 3 minutes. So that's. But everything else has been pretty much status quo. Since last month. So.
Any questions? Awesome. Budget. Okay. Superintendent evaluation. Hopefully many will be back with the new year, and you provided a new draft of your proposed goals, and so we're definitely getting into 2024, but we'll try to get that wrapped up and moving forward early in the new year. Any other questions, discussions for subcommittee updates? Okay. So moving on to old business, an update on the Holliston Coalition Against Hate and Bias.
Yes, and school committee members were in the last meeting we had. We had our very first coalition meeting on December 6th, wasn't it, or 7th? It was the 6th. It was initially the 7th. We moved it to the 6th, and we had about 15 or 16 community representatives in that meeting. We were pleased with the conversation that night. I'll let either Sarah or Amanda talk to their presence there as well. We've gotten some positive feedback, but we're just scratching the surface at this point. I just sent out an invitation to that same group for January 16th, thank you. And we're still keeping it with that group because we feel like we need to figure out what our direction is. I've met with a couple of high school students this week. I want to sit with the hate prevention group of students at the high school. I think there's an opportunity to invite some of them to one of our meetings. And also, we need to determine we're going to break up into subcommittees. So it's too early to know what direction to go. I do see a need, and we talked about this, for more diverse voices in the room. And we know we're going to get there. We just want to plan so that we can have a focus of where we're going before we open it up too broadly. Did either of you want to?
Yeah, I would echo all of that. Definitely cons, we need more diverse voices. As discussed, we do want to encourage more students and do more outreach to make sure we can really encourage folks to come, and not only come, but find out what they need to feel comfortable in that situation to encourage more diverse voices. It was a very good start to the meeting. Everyone expressed their passion for having concrete outcomes and measurables and deliverables to come out of this meeting and not just have it be yet another talking group. So I look forward to that.
Yeah, I reached out, I've tried to reach out to ADL. They do a lot more work with schools, and they're changing their focus based on some recent, we've had the Anti-Defamation League in before. They do work with more school communities, but I've been reaching out to try to find out if there's someone that could potentially help us facilitate externally, rather than, right now it's Travis Ahern and I are co-facilitating. I think it'd be helpful to have someone outside the community maybe come and help us provide some structure as well. So I'm looking into bringing in potential resources that maybe the town and schools could help fund together with some of our community leaders.
Yeah, I thought it was great to have the broader community involved. It didn't feel quite as much of a school sponsored pushed thing. So it was really good to have, but we definitely need to have more diverse members. So that I think is kind of one of the next.
The feedback from some of the people that attended has been good as well, because people were not sure what to expect, nor were we, and I think that's why we want to dip our feet in and figure out how we can all work together as a community. We talked about potentially some of the businesses. Is there some work to do in the business community? So some good ideas brought to the table. I just got the notes typed up, and we'll look at the notes.
Can we just clarify? I feel like when we initially voted to start this group, it was going to be like the meetings were going to be posted or like recorded or publicly posted or something like that. Where did we land with that?
So that was if it was a school committee task force. It's not. It's a community group that I'm just a member of, co-facilitating with Travis. So I did talk to the smaller group that's trying to plan for the next meeting. We feel that we first need to figure out what direction we're going as far as posting. If we're going to open it, right now they're not public meetings because we're trying to put together the plan. Once we get to the point of opening up to a forum or a larger community group, then they would be posted so that we can invite people.
Thanks.
So the intention is that it will become a public meeting at some point.
I think that's what we're going to get. We just don't know what it looks like yet. I feel like there should be definitely an opportunity that we're going to do some kind of, whether it's, like if we're on the ADL, are we going to just open it up to the community? That's the intention. It just, we haven't planned far enough yet.
Because I feel like sometimes a group, like the group may draw people with interest in promoting that, but the openness to the community, like someone who might not agree with it but needs to come and listen, or someone who's on the fence and doesn't know how to get involved and do that activist work, those are the voices that we really need hearing what's going on in the committee too.
Yeah, that's what we want to get to, and I think that one of the things we talked about when I met with Travis, Jackie, and Lieutenant Barrett and Kathleen Buckley yesterday, I think it was just yesterday, we talked about that. Are we going to put together subcommittees, which would then invite, a lot of stakeholders? We haven't defined it yet, and we just that one meeting, we don't know what the direction is going to be. Once we have that direction, then we can figure out how to bring in more stakeholders.
And was there any openness to bringing students in?
Absolutely.
I feel like the impact on them when events occur, and also their voice in this is critical.
100%. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that is the plan.
Okay, thank you. Is there more of an update on the equity audit steering group, or do we just want to appoint?
I can quickly give you something. I asked Mr. Renee, if he had anything more to share. He figured he could give you just a quick reminder about some of the dates and so forth. So he talked about that they're looking for continuing their progress towards fostering greater equity and access within the education community. They're looking to leverage the insights gained from the audit and positive growth for our district aligned with the strategic plan. They're going to focus on delving into the strengths, challenges, and recommendations section of the equity audit report, and they will play a pivotal role in providing invaluable recommendations, feedback, and insights, guiding us on the most effective strategies towards implementing the audit's recommendations. He does have the meeting dates set, January 8th, so whoever's going to be part of that. I'm not looking at anyone in particular, I'm just saying. January 8th, February 5th, March 4th, April 1st, May 6th, and June 3rd are the dates at this time. And then he's also looking with the group, to put together stakeholder focus groups to inform and ensure they get a wide array of diverse voices from the education community and bring that data and information back to the steering committee as well, aligned with the mission and vision.
Okay, great. So we need to appoint a member, or we're being asked to appoint a member. Does anyone have interest in being that representative?
I don't have availability on a Monday night.
Okay.
I already have something.
Okay. So then I'd entertain a motion to appoint Sarah to be the school committee representative on the Equity Audit Steering Committee.
Moved by Dawn.
Seconded by Cynthia.
All's in favor? That carries
Thanks, Sarah.
5-0. All right, facility usage, Holliston High School auditorium.
We haven't met, so we have nothing.
What do you-
January 4th.
Dawn and I haven't met.
Yeah,
Okay,
we need to do the update on January 4th.
I know there's someone who's interested in, who's trying to get it.
I understand that.
Okay.
I don't agree with your terms. Dawn has to try to talk to me.
Okay.
We
Okay.
need the money.
It's not enough money.
It's the vibrancy too of just the, you know, so anyway, do your best. SOI update.
Unfortunately, we did get news, was it last week from the, yes, I think it was right before we had our budget subcommittee. I heard from, I got a call from someone at MSBA wanting us to know that they did not have enough funds to add us to the next phase and move towards feasibility. However, they did want us to know that they did consider us a very strong contender and that they do think we need a new facility. We just didn't make the cut when they had to move, was it 12 districts, Keith? 12 districts move forward in this process, and they don't want us to give up. They do think it's a very viable need in our community. They just couldn't stretch the funds any further. So very disappointing, but the good news is we did go to the senior study process. They felt we had a very strong application, and we did add components this year that have got us to the senior study. So, you know, unfortunately, however you look at it, every year is a new year, and you're starting over in a way again, because it depends on who is in that pool that year and where everybody falls. So it's a challenge, and I don't know where we end up, but for now we will definitely resubmit this coming year, and we'll be looking for a vote from you after the new year begins.
Okay, great. Any questions? Not great, obviously, but the update. Just not great at all, but thank you for the update. Any questions? All right. New business, overnight field trip, we've done that. Newsletter. We received the policy subcommittee meeting minutes. Our next meeting will be on January 4th, 2024, and we look forward to seeing you there. With that, we've come to the end of our agenda. We do not have need to re-enter executive session, so I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Moved by Cynthia.
Second by Dawn.
All in favor? Aye. We stand adjourned 1 minute early.